Good evening, this is Tim Johnson, and coming up, the second regular May meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard aired live here on BCTV. Coming up, the Board as Liquor Commissioners will consider a new liquor license application for the new owners of the Beacon on Putney Road, plus a liquor license renewal for Grafton Village Cheese Company. The Board as Water and Sewer Commissioners will get an update on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and they're requested to approve a budget for associated independent testing activities. The board is also being asked to appoint Darrell Pillsbury to the Wastewater Treatment Plant Oversight Committee. Town Finance Director John Leistenring will do his regular financial update. Nothing to cough about, certainly. The board will discuss adopting an enabling resolution authorizing the town treasurer and assistant treasurer to conduct business and make and liquidate investments with the investment brokerage firm of Morgan Stanley Smith Barney. The board is also being asked to enter into an agreement which would provide a credit for the town's assessment from the Wyndham Solid Waste District, a grant acceptance of $30,000 for a planning and feasibility study at Hilltop House is on the board's agenda, plus a recycling update from Recycling Coordinator Moss Kaler, an update on Brattleboro skate art spots in town, a grant application request from the Downtown Development Fund for wayfinding signage. Town road and bridge standards are being discussed with Public Works Director Steve Barrett, a bid award for Union Hill paving, a street blocking permit for a Myrtle Street block party. That, by the way, is June 11th, if you care to crash. A circus application from Circus Smirkus, dog warrants, acceptance and appropriation of a fingerprint grant for a fingerprint system, and appropriating a donation and accepting it from a private citizen, plus the request to officially disband the town's Charter Review Commission. All that and more coming up in just a bit. It's the Brattleboro Select Board here on BCTV.
Good evening, and I'd like to reconvene our May 17th scheduled meeting, and we do know that the meeting has been officially warned. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes from a special meeting on April 28th.
So moved.
Any additions, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions, 1, myself, 401. And I would accept a motion on the minutes from May 3rd.
Move to approve the May 3rd minutes as presented.
And any corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 5-0. Thank you very much. Chair's remarks, only a few. We won't be meeting again before the strolling of the heifers that first weekend in June. One of the things that was talked about is dogs. A plea to the people within the community not to bring your dogs downtown on Friday night for the festivities, and certainly not for the parade. We do have a leash law in town if you are going to bring your dog down, but we strongly encourage you to leave your pets at home. Other than that, Barb, I really don't have anything here this evening.
No, I don't think I do either. The only, well, we do have committees. We're going to do a public announcement on the committee vacancies that we have, and just real quick, does the board have an interest in setting a deadline for applications?
Because they go into office on July 1, yeah, probably like
June 15th?
June, well, we're going to have to interview people, so at least by June 17th
Okay.
okay? Because then
Okay.
we would interview at the 21st meeting.
Okay, that was all. That was not really a comment, but I snuck it in.
There you go. Public participation, an opportunity for you to participate in tonight's meeting on something that is not on our agenda here this evening. We'll give you approximately 2 minutes if you would like to speak, and if you do, please come up to the microphone and state your name and the town that you're from, and the issue you'd like to talk about. All right, everybody's here for business this evening. Could be out of here in 2:45. Ken?
Select board, did you skip select board committee reports?
Excuse me, I did, yeah. Select board committee reports?
I don't have one, I just,
Oh, good. Keeping me on my toes. You know, you put that time clock on me, so I
Yeah.
was trying to get you out of here.
I do have some questions that I just want to make sure will be addressed at some point tonight. I wanted to know the status of the receipt and installation of the equipment for the railroad preemption fix. I don't know if that's directly on the agenda. It would fall under traffic safety, for example. I'd like to get an update on that. It's been a long time.
Yep, I've
since
asked-
I had a question about the striping as well.
Right.
I'd like to know about.
Steve Barrett's prepared to speak to those. Do you want him just to do that now during?
I don't know if it's directly on the agenda, but I also had a
It's
question.
not on the agenda, so.
I want to know what happened when I-91 was shut down last week in terms of diverting traffic.
I can tell you, I can talk
All right,
about
so
that.
I'd just like to make sure we get reports on all of those things. There was one
Okay.
other thing I left a message about. I don't remember what it was, but. I just wanna make
You had
sure
asked
those
about
things
the
are addressed.
fire, Brooks Fire. I was going to talk about under the finance stuff. Last week you asked about
Yeah.
that. I can start with the I-91 when we had, and then I'll kick it over to Steve for the other things. On Monday morning, last Monday morning, or Tuesday morning, I guess, there was an accident on I-91, and that was when they had the cars were going, it was a two-way traffic pattern on the bridge, on the southbound bridge. What happened was a truck going, I believe the truck was going southbound, hit the, we don't know why, but actually hit one of the barrels, which then squished and hit one of the Jersey barriers, knocking it out of place. A car then came by and actually came up onto the Jersey barrier. This happened about 1:32 a.m. The good news on this is that the way the barrels are, that all worked. It did really stop the impact and prevent a lot more damage. Unfortunately, probably because of the time of night and those types of things, that other cars couldn't stop quickly enough. At that time, then the fire and police and Public Works, they did put out the detour signs, trying to detour traffic according to the plan that was developed in response to emergencies at I-91. It wasn't really a great test because by the time they were really going to kind of see how it worked as far as rerouting traffic, at 7:30 they opened up I-91 again. So we didn't get a fully test. We got to test the getting the signs out, the sign package installation, and some people probably got the detour, but that was it. There was a backup. It did cause a backup at exit 1 in the morning time. That will be something that probably will occur when that happens, is that you're going to get a detour because people are just going to be going a lot more slowly as they try to get through town. But all in all, and then I'll kick it to Steve to kind of give more of, I think we were pretty happy with how the plan was executed, although, again, it didn't fully allow us to kind of test the plan.
Steve Barrett, Public Works Director. Just to add to what Barb said, after the accident, they did not reestablish the crossover, and that's because they had to order new parts. The actual barricade that the truck hit are plastic barrels that actually fill with water, and then at the end of that is sand. And it did its job. It actually protected the tractor-trailer truck from probably splitting in half. So those had to be reordered. They're in. The contractor did put out a press release, I believe yesterday. And I talked to the engineer on site, and he said maybe that was a little premature, that would be reopened today, which it is not. But he does suspect by the end of the week that the crossover will be reestablished. And also, they're going to begin working on Maple Street, taking the bridge deck off on Maple Street, and that's expected to start Wednesday, tomorrow. Again, we'll see, but that's the update on the I-91. As far as, like Barb said, it was 7 o'clock by the time they reestablished the traffic, so the state did assist us. They got those message signs, and they've also agreed to move those up as we talked at the select board meeting here before. But electronically, they were able to detour traffic, so that was successful. Main Street, it has been a long time. I got an email today from the engineer who contacted the contractor that's going to do the light, and it says we're planning to do all the work in the next 2 weeks, with the exception of installing the LED lights. I guess there was a delay on the actual ordering of the LED lights, and that's for that right-hand turn that we talked about. When pedestrians are crossing, it says no right-hand turn. So with that, he says if all is well, within the next 2 weeks, we should have all the signs, have everything mounted, and the final programming in place. And if there's not any major problems, we should be completed in 4 weeks or mid-June. But again, we were told 4 to 6 weeks. You know, that was 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago. So, but that's the update I got today. The parts are in, so they said they'll start working on it. The line striping, they said they're going to start Monday, weather permitting, Sunday night. And then I told them
Next week?
next week, Monday, Sunday night. And with that, of course, that's weather dependent. And it hasn't been really warm at night. We've started our painting, but they do need consecutive days at 50 degrees at night for this material to stick. They were looking at June, and I asked them if they could move it up because of the weather, and they've agreed to do that. And so hopefully we'll be in shape. I told them that during the weekend of the Heifer Parade, that need to be out of there at least by Wednesday because of all the events.
Thank you.
Dora?
Just one announcement, the Solid Waste Committee has their next quarterly meeting on June 6th at 6 p.m. in the Hannah Cosman Room. Folks are really welcome to come. They'd love your input. Thank you.
Can I follow up one thing with regard to the traffic, since we're on that topic? Was that this week or last week? Last week, I guess, when there was a train. Well, we've been having trouble with periodically trains will get stopped over the crossing, and they'll be there for like 20 minutes. Last week it was like 25 minutes, and I actually got a call from somebody who works here saying they were going to be late because it had gotten, she'd been sitting there for 20 minutes. She was one of the first ones in line on the coming over from the Hinsdale side. When I got that call, we did call the police department to get folks down, the officers down to get the traffic moving. We did talk to the radio stations to let people know that we got a call then from another call that said that the train was going to be there for another 40 minutes. We had dispatch call the train company to try to get them to move the train from across the crossing, off the crossing. They did do that, but obviously until the new lights, even when the new light system gets up, having a train on the crossing for over 20 minutes is going to cause problems all around, because you still have people who are going to want to go across to get over to Hinsdale, and people coming from Hinsdale to come back into Brattleboro. things that we were working on are trying to get the better communications with the police department so that police officers get down there more quickly to get traffic moving with that, and in this in-between time. I don't know what's going on, but this has occurred now 3 times within probably the last 6 weeks, where we've had a train that has just stopped and sat there for 25 minutes. So we are trying to get to the person that can let us know why that's happening, because that's not usual. And we really do need to get that. So if people are in a situation where they're sitting there for 10, 15 minutes, don't hesitate to call and make sure we try to get an officer down there because we need several officers really to go down to get traffic moving.
One other thing too is the sidewalk work at the corner of High and Main. What happened there and this is part of the Main Street project as far as the ADA ramps and such. When they lifted the sidewalks, they found the old access points that go to the cellars, and they're really cubicles that are probably 6 by 6 by 8 feet deep. And they found a series of them. There's probably 5 or 6 there. So what they had to do is they've ordered steel, and the steel's supposed to be in tomorrow. And they'll steel plate over these, I guess you call access points, and then they'll pour the sidewalk, and they're hoping to have that completed. Once that sidewalk's completed, then they can put the staging back up, and people, again, will have access underneath the staging area. How good that will be during the demo project, we'll see. But it will open the sidewalk.
Do we hope, well, so we should have that done by the
They're
heifer
talking that
stroll,
steel
right?
plates are supposed to be in tomorrow, and they may even pour, if it's not pouring too hard, they'll put tarps over it, and they're talking to pouring it this week.
Okay, good.
And that will be the completion of all the sidewalk work downtown.
Thank you.
For right now.
Stay tuned.
I know that we had several complaints about debris flying down the streets, and I know that you contacted the contractor and made sure that the dumpsters were covered. I know we had some complaints the other day that I called you about. I think there was quite a bit of dust, and actually the only reason that it had dissipated away was because it started raining, so thank you for doing that. Okay, back on task. I would accept a motion to go into liquor commissioners.
Move to go to liquor commissioners.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. We are now liquor commissioners.
Okay, we have a new license for the Beacon. You're here? Okay, great, thank you. If you want, you can come on up and just have a seat at the table. And this is although they're maintaining the same name, the Beacon, this is new ownership. And as you see in your packets, the only thing that's different is that the fire chief has asked that the fire department and Vermont Division of Fire Safety requirements be fulfilled before the opening. So if you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Michael Foreman. I'm from Hinsdale, and I was there pretty much all my life. Decided to open the Beacon back up after Mark Long closed it last year. Been a long road to get there, but it looks like we're there. Long as you folks see fit to let it go.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is that we have several bars that we require to attend quarterly meetings. And I'm going to ask that you attend these quarterly meetings, at least for the first year, as part of a contingency on your license. And I also wanted to let you know is that, and other owners out there, that there's going to be a training, a beverage service training, and it will be on June 16th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Marlboro College Graduate Center. And you can get a hold of the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition. So,
I've spoken with Bill Manch already, and he said that if the place plans on being open before that, he said he would set up a training seminar for the folks that'll be in there.
Okay.
Before that, if necessary.
very good, very good. I'm glad you have done that. Yeah. Any further questions? Dora?
I'm not seeing it on here. I mean, I know that they previously had an outside consumption permit. Is that, I'm not seeing it here. I just want to make sure it's not. Okay.
The only-
No, it's a separate form that they would have had to fill out for
The
an
only
outside.
the only place they don't consume alcohol outside, say on the sidewalk or anything like that, there's a enclosed deck on the back.
On the back,
Fenced
so-
in, yeah, where they smoke, and if that's required, I could certainly make one out for that. I didn't, it wasn't mentioned before, but I don't
Yeah.
have any issues with that, if it needs to be done.
I mean, if it's only smoking, I mean, but
Oh,
they
it's
did,
smoking,
they
but they
did
do
apply.
walk out there with their drinks.
And it's enclosed, right?
It certainly is enclosed by a fence, and it has a locked gate on the back for
Okay.
means of egress.
I don't think it needs it then, do you?
I'd have to check on that, but
Yeah.
They had come-
We'll get back in touch
we
with you.
can check, and if you need to fill
Yeah.
another form out, we can do
I
that.
wouldn't remember. that.
Okay, I would accept a motion for Mr. Fournier.
I move to approve the first-class liquor license for Michael Fournier, doing business as The Beacon, 747 Putney Road, with the condition that all Brattleboro Fire Department and Vermont Division of Fire Safety requirements be fulfilled prior to the establishment's opening, and that the owners attend quarterly liquor license meetings as convened by the town.
Very good. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have a liquor license renewal for Grafton Cheese. Is there anybody here from Grafton? Okay, this is just a license renewal. Deadline slipped by them.
Yeah, it was nice. I'm wondering about
So,
that.
and this is for a second-class liquor license.
Okay, I would accept a motion.
Move to approve the second-class liquor license for Grafton Village Cheese Company, LLC, doing business at Grafton Village Cheese Company at 400 Linden Street.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, thank you. I would accept a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
Move to adjourn as liquor commission.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 5-0. I would accept a motion to go into water and sewer commissioners.
I move that we convene as water and sewer commissioners.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, thank you. We're water and sewer commission.
Okay, Michael Schramm and Gene Forbes with Hoyle Tanner are here. No, Steve, are you going to join Rick, are you guys going to join the men at the table? They are here for two different purposes. One is to give us an overview of the project, and the other is to make a couple of recommendations to the board. Thank you for coming. Do you want to introduce yourselves for the people at home?
Yes, I'm Gene Forbes with Hoyle Tanner Associates.
I'm Mike Schramm with Hoyle Tanner Associates. Steve Barrett, Public Works. Rick Ethier, Public Works.
Good to see
You're
you
up.
guys.
Thank you for having us. It's been a while since we've been here, and things have been a little quiet over the winter as far as activities at the construction site. The project was awarded last December 1st, I think is the date, and that award went to Pittsburgh Valley Construction Corporation out of South Burlington. They spent the winter primarily doing a lot of administrative submittals, paperwork and such, getting permits in place that they needed. And they had started sometime in April at the site. We had a groundbreaking. Mr. Chapman was there, great, and so was Dre. We had a very good start so far. The contractor has progressed with, fully mobilizing to the site. He has set up his security fencing and also installed some both temporary and permanent stormwater facilities, new plunge pool that's part of the project, and he's getting his temporary erosion protection control in place. He's also working with the area of the new headworks building to do some of the demolition work required to make space for that construction. And as of today, they finally installed and finalized their installation of a monitoring test well that will be used for part of their development of the groundwater management plan. So that is moving along. They should be excavating in the next few weeks for replacement of a reconnection of the outfall to make room for primary clarifier construction, and there'll be beginning installation as well, and the dewatering equipment and the excavation for the headworks building. So it is moving along. We have routine weekly meetings, and we are holding routine monthly meetings, which the State Department of Environmental Conservation representative comes to just review progress and make sure things are progressing properly. We're approximately 20% complete with regard to timing of the project. The actual monies expended are only at around 3% because the start over the winter excuse me, was mostly administrative, as I mentioned. So we think the project's going well. It's going to get a lot more busy out there in the months to come as the weather warms up and dries up. And so I welcome anybody to come out if you're interested in seeing it. And I don't know if you have any questions about the project progress right now. I'd be happy to entertain those or move on if you like.
One of the questions I had, and not related to the construction physical being of the plant, but earlier this year, we went up and had a conversation with the governor and tried to look at the revolving loan fund around to, as you know, people are aware, the cap that was put on the revolving loan fund, which changed a lot of the figures that we did in our earlier preliminary rate setting spreadsheet. And have you heard anything about anything that has changed up there in terms of the revolving loan fund?
Well, yes and no. We're getting close to a deadline that some of you may remember. The fiscal year, 2011 fiscal year funds need to be expended or committed by the end of the fiscal year, or they will become available to communities such as Brattleboro. I think Brattleboro is technically the only one that fits the requirement for that. As we get closer to it, there's buzz about some of the projects and where they are. There are some projects out there that are trying to get off the ground, trying to finalize designs. So we're anxiously waiting to see how those projects come to fruition or not by the end of the fiscal year, which is in the next month or so. And if those projects do not get off the ground, we'll be looking towards an increase of that 2011 limited loan that was already approved for the town.
Do you have any idea of, because there is no cap on that, these outstanding loans for these other projects? So there could be several projects out there with a cap of $4 million that's not expended, which could all come to us, correct?
Well, yeah, but there's very few projects of that magnitude, and it really is unlikely to be a tremendous amount of money that would be in that range. I do know of one project that's in the $2 million range that's being discussed. Most of the other ones, I think, that haven't gone yet are very small, barely, a couple $100,000. So I don't think that there's that much on the table, so to speak, right
Okay.
now. The total appropriations was, I believe, around $9 million. I have to refresh my memory, I may be off on that. So there's not a lot of hope that there will be significant dollars available for Brattleboro. I will point out, we also watch carefully what happens with regard to future years. There's a lot of speculation about what will happen in Washington relative to next year's appropriations. The bills that have been presented for discussion for next year range quite significantly, but all have a significant reduction in federal support for the SRF program. I don't think that will hurt Brattleboro because you're an ongoing project. You will have high priority listing in regards to the allocation of those funds. However, it's not inconceivable the state would make some changes as they see the total pot of money being reduced. They may, for example, consider changing their cap from $4 million to lower. I certainly hope they wouldn't do things like that, but right now we're all watching intently on what happens at the federal level because that makes up about 50% of the SRF program cost.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dora?
So the testing, is that an additional cost, or is that just within the budget that you're asking for that to be?
Yeah, I get into that in a moment. If you, are we all set on the plant, though?
Go for it.
So you're actually on schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's on schedule. And to get to the second item about testing, we are here today to ask your approval regarding testing. These are activities that we have planned for, but we have not yet gotten your approval. It's not in our contract, it's not in the construction contract. These testing activities are somewhat unique in that they are quite variable. As we install the piles, that's going to be the biggest part of this allocation we're requesting. There is a need for dynamic pile testing that we want to do as that goes in. And we want it done by a third party, not the contractor. And then the second area is relative to backfilling and compaction testing. We routinely recommend and require field testing for that to demonstrate that there's adequate compaction. This is another area where traditionally we do not put it into contractor's responsibility. Contractor is responsible for quite a bit of testing, concrete testing and other activities, but these are fairly unique type of testing activities that we would like to manage directly. We met with the Oversight Committee last week to discuss in detail some proposals we received relative to these tests, and they have recommended this budget and that the testing be directly contracted by the town as an independent testing agent. So we've asked for your approval for a budget.
But this is an allowable expense under the SRF?
Oh, yes, yes.
So it is part of the overall budget
It
for
would be a
wastewater,
program
it's not part of the
cost, yeah.
construction costs.
Absolutely.
Could you explain just a little bit, maybe, yes, could you explain maybe just a little bit, Jean, about what makes the pile testing kind of a little bit different in at our particular site, the complexities of the soil and...
Yeah. The type of piles we're installing are what we call friction piles, and that they derive their strength not because they're landing on a solid rock foundation, but because of the skin friction as these piles are being driven. It's important to have somebody, third party, review dynamically what kind of stress or strength is being developed as they drive these piles. The soils out there are very soft, and we are relying on that strength to support the buildings and structures out there. Currently, all of your structures at that plant are built on piles now. And we did investigate alternatives as part of our design for supporting of the structures. We reached the same conclusion that the prior designers did, that piles are necessary. Dynamic pile testing is our way of making sure that the piles meet the requirements that we specify. That it's not just driven to a length and we think that length is okay. We want to know for sure that the piles have the strength as they're being developed.
Because if they're not, the buildings,
If they're not, you can have structural problems, they can differentially settle, they can do a variety of problems, cracked floors, cracked structures. We don't want to slip on this one.
That's right. You don't want to come back and see us in another venue, right?
That's for sure.
Okay, I would accept the motion.
Is it fair to say that you've reviewed bids from various contractors and you're recommending going with SW Cole Engineering and Geosciences testing?
We did get some pricing from a variety of firms. The geoscience testing is a specialized firm, and practically speaking, they were the only dynamic pile testing firm we went to get pricing. The pricing there was somewhat sole source because it's very specialized testing. The only ones nearby are out of Chicopee, Mass, I believe, and Chelmsford. You're right, North Chelmsford. And the only other one, we talked to our geotechnical engineers about who might be capable of doing this. The only other one mentioned was much further away, and it just seemed impractical.
and so part of what we're asking the board to do with this request is, just so it's really clear, is that this is outside of the normal purchasing policy.
For sure.
Right.
Is it within the budget that we put together for this project?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, but
yeah.
there's a purchasing policy that we have, and this goes askew from that.
We're not asking for formal bid process. What we've done is we've relied on our engineering firm to go out and seek bids and quotes and then make a recommendation to us on who we should go with.
Thanks.
I would accept the motion.
I move that we approve a testing budget of $40,000 for activities associated with the wastewater treatment upgrade project with the aforementioned firms, SW Cole Engineering and Geosciences Testing and Research.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
And I'd like to let Mike talk a little bit about the third item here, asset management software, where we're at with that, because this is something we do want your approval in the future.
Sure, thank you. We've been working with town staff on the evaluation of various asset management software programs that would be used by town staff at the plant for ongoing maintenance and operations activities to maintain and operate the plant. At this point, we have met with 5 different firms that sell this type of software. We're in the process of evaluating the 5 that we've met with. We plan to come back, or we plan to finalize our recommendation of a selected software program here shortly, and we hope to have a recommendation to the select board at the time of your next meeting. So just wanted to give you a heads up that we are working on that. That's something that will be coming your way. At that point, we would be looking for authorization from you for the purchasing of that software package.
Excuse my ignorance. How is this going to be different than the SCADA system that is that we have in place?
The SCADA system tracks sort of real-time operation, how the various system components are operating, and keeps a history of that data.
Okay.
These programs are proactive. They can help you establish work routines and operation procedures, remind you of when critical maintenance is due to occur, can help you prioritize where you spend your maintenance dollars, on which critical pieces of that, how you prioritize where you spend your maintenance dollars.
Yep.
If I might add, also, this is something we've been talking about for quite some time, and our engineering budget includes the work necessary to not just select the software, but to implement the information, bring the information into it. What it entails is really administrative work and engineering work to develop standard operating procedures for maintenance activities, prioritizing maintenance based on risk, failure, condition, assessment and such. Allow the manager to predict his annual budget better in terms of capital and operating costs for running the plant in the future. And again, this was also something that we've had conversations both with the Oversight Committee about and the state of Vermont as well. And it is a project eligible expense and has been foreseen for quite a while now. It's just finally getting to this point where we want to acquire the software and starting to inputting all this data. It's going to take us quite a while to build this system so that it can be an effective tool for the operations.
Very good. Any further questions for?
So this is like a, it's in the form of software, but it's a permanent sort of tool.
Right. It's a lot of things. Among the things it does is it's a work order generator. It'll generate a work order every day they come to work, and here's the list of the things they have to do this week or this day. Here's the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. Here's the list of your tools, your time that you should be spending, the number of people you need, the safety equipment, the spare parts. So when they go to do the work, they've got everything planned and ready to go. It's a computerized maintenance management software system that tracks all your budgets. It does a lot of things to basically protect the assets and the investment of this operation.
It also has the ability to document and categorize the various owner's manuals or operation and maintenance manuals that would come with the various pumps and motors and different pieces of equipment that are going in at the plant in a way that information would be stored electronically and be able to be searched electronically.
When you provide recommendations at the next meeting, hopefully, will you compare the various software packages and explain the recommendation?
We will.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next, Steve and Rick, you want to stay up? The next is with our Oversight Committee. Daryl Pillsbury has requested to remain on that committee. He was put on the committee from the board. So has an interest in staying on. John Allen was on the committee. He's actually hasn't been able to come for quite a period of time. So we would like Daryl Pillsbury to be appointed to that committee.
I would accept a motion.
Move to appoint Daryl Pillsbury to the wastewater treatment plant upgrade oversight committee.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Daryl.
Thanks, guys.
I would accept a motion to adjourn as Water Sewer Commissioners.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. New business.
First up is the financial report narrative for the period ending April 30th, 2011. Finance Director John Wiseman is here to take questions, concerns. I'll take any compliments.
Well, that's what I have that. I have that. So I don't know if this added a lot of work for you all, but I have to say that the narrative was extraordinarily helpful
Yes.
in looking through here.
Thank
So
you.
I did indeed have a compliment.
Yeah, but now I don't have anything to say when I give the report. That's what I get for passing that out to Barb. She always gets the last word.
Just as to say a little bit of something, I was asked last time about the actual kind of direct costs associated with the fire, the Brooks House fire, and actual direct costs are about $23,000. The majority of that was overtime, and the issue wasn't just overtime with the actual fire, but we incurred overtime for that week in which we were actually operating the building and getting people in and out, those types of things. And then it also includes the only piece of equipment we lost in the fire, or as a cost related to the fires, there was one hose that was lost during the backout. But that was the cost, direct cost to the town. That does not include mutual aid or the water that was used, or but that does include overtime, fire, police, public works. And it doesn't include obviously, the time of those salaried employees.
Any questions for John or Barb here?
Are we charging ourselves for the water?
No, we don't charge,
We don't meter
we used to charge for hydrants. We don't anymore, but no.
But that's a interesting question, because that meter, that building was sprinkled, which is on a meter. Steve left, right?
The sprinkler system is not on it.
Not metered.
It's not on a meter?
But
Yeah.
you gotta remember that the Brooks House has paid fees
Right.
Or-
since the beginning of the water system for standby charges for those sprinkler systems.
Right.
And that's how they pay. They pay a quarterly fee.
In advance.
Yeah.
In hopes that they never have to utilize it. Barb, I know we have to schedule a parking meeting, transportation meeting. As I was looking at this, the snow removal
Killed us.
killed us. We had actually reduced that the prior year from 70 to 60,000, and we have expended 95,000 this year. Are we hoping to at least break even here?
Yes. If we continue on, you'll note you'll note that our revenue, our meter revenue is actually good, and our fine revenue is still pretty good. And the permit stickers, that has another quarter to go, so we're actually in a good place on that, because there's one more quarter in there. So our revenue, I think, will be on, and what we're trying to do is cut some additional costs in expenditures to try to get to a zero balance budget.
One of the things we never talk about, but smart cards. And smart cards now go into the pay and display meters that we have. And the best way that you can save money with the pay and display meter is use a smart card. And so I would encourage local residents who go downtown and utilize one of the pay and display lots is that they purchase a smart card. Which leads me to another question. Is the pay and display machine up in the lot behind the rec department?
No.
It's, yeah.
Ricky here with Public Works. I gave Gene the estimate on the cost to do that, and I talked to him a couple times asking him for the go-ahead, and he hasn't said to go ahead and do it.
The cost on that is for the electric?
We're gonna have to bury electric line from where the machine is positioned at the end of the island, connect it to the Gibson Aiken Center for power.
Can we look at the same company that we purchased ours from? They have them in Lake Placid, which I was up there this weekend, and they have several solar-powered pay and display machines. And I guess I would say, what's going to be the cost differential if we find out what a solar panel would cost to run the pay and display machine versus running the power line all the way through the parking lot?
I could research it, and I believe the numbers for installing it hardwired were over several thousand.
There were.
I don't have it with me right now.
But I do know.
can look into that for you.
There might be a less expensive way to do that with the solar, and it is the same company that we bought ours from that they have up there, so.
I'll do the
Okay.
research and get Barb the
Good.
numbers.
Good catch, Dick.
Something.
Any further questions on the,
I had a few, just trying to understand the budget.
go ahead?
It starts with page 1 on the general fund, and there's a line item for $350,000 in donations.
That's for the anticipated donations for the West River Park. Those are neither that revenue nor the expenditures will be in this budget year.
Okay, so that's netting out.
Yeah.
Although they are opening bids next week.
I think we're tracking some of those revenues in our special fund.
Right.
For the recreation.
For the, yeah, because a lot of them they're pledges at this
Yeah.
point still.
Okay, okay. And there was another line item down below that, in lieu of taxes. I see that that's come in at 40% of budget. I was
That
wondering what that's all
will,
about.
That will increase.
That will increase when there are two different payments that come right at the
Okay.
end of the year.
Okay.
That are some of our largest payments, and so I'm not concerned about that line.
Oh, good, good. Thank you. And just moving through here, I didn't have a lot of questions. Well, those were, no, we've already, let's see. On the capital improvement fund, on page 1 of 2, under the fire department, there's a line item for building improvement current year, expense for
What page
40,000.
again? I'm sorry?
Oh, it's 1 of 2 under the capital
The
improvement
last
fund.
page.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Second to last page.
Okay.
It's a $40,000 item, and I just didn't know what
Well,
that was all
that's
about.
for, we took open bids on that project yesterday, or last
Okay.
week.
Uh-huh.
That's for the engineering study.
Oh, of the Main Street, the Elliott Street building?
No.
No?
Well, for combined a police station, fire station, whether, and to look at alternatives and make recommendations.
Okay, so the plans that were shelved before are being just looked at again? Is that the story?
Kind of starting over.
No, not
Starting
that, no,
Well,
because they needed those, the plans that were done before are being reviewed and looked at by the people who are doing the, who responded to this request for proposals. This request for proposals, actually, in the prior years, we requested either studies of potential sites, or they did a actual couple designs at a particular site. This gave them 4 different sites to look at, to give us cost estimates of each of the sites and pros and cons of these 4 particular sites.
And this would be for combined police fire?
Not necessarily there as a police fire combined option. It also, one of the other options is for everybody to stay in place and upgrades at the existing locations.
I see, so it's a comprehensive look at all our,
I have 4 different options.
okay.
Can you articulate what are the 4 options?
There,
Well, one
If
is
you
stay
let
where
me-
they are.
right, I can go get that, and I don't want to speak without it in front of me, but I can go get it real quick. You want to grab just one of those, just that folder with the bid documents in there, please?
And I guess while we wait, John, we haven't received the 3rd installment of the rooms and meals tax, which is usually due right about now.
no, actually, it's a little past due, and I just got an email on Friday after I did my report. And the amount for the 3rd quarter was $70,059.
What is it, 70?
70,000, which is the highest 3rd quarter we've had. The last 3 quarters, or last 3 years were in the low 60s. And year-to-date, we're at 237,822, 78% of the budget.
Typically, this next quarter is one of our biggest quarters historically, and so we, John and I both feel really confident that we're going to exceed what we have in the budget. What I think we have in the budget, 303.
303.
We're estimating we'll probably at least be at 307, and I'm doing my part. Staying at hotels.
There you go. Okay.
There was
Dora,
one-
you had a couple of questions while we're still...
Well, I'm not sure Chris is.
Well, I had one other under Public Works.
Yeah.
I was looking at the, also under the Capital Improvement Fund, the numbers just didn't tell me a story. I see a budget of $1,002,000, and I see only 52% of that spent. And I was just wondering, as we look at street paving, the budget was $25,000, we spent $387,000. I mean, it looks like, there's just something I'm just not understanding here.
Well, part of it is, you'll notice on the street paving, and I noticed this too, that they're charging, we had 382,000, or we had a carryover from the previous year, and we're just, whether we charge it the current year or last year, it's all the same paving budget.
Oh, I
Just
see.
trying to keep track so that we could compare with the town report as far as the budget numbers are concerned, but you'll see those are still close. We had an $800,000 budget last year,
Uh-huh.
and we've spent a good part of that. Well, of the 800,000, we had 419,000 left over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Okay.
we spent 387,000 plus 37,000, so we spent a good part of that
Okay, so this is
between
like,
the two accounts.
okay, so this is a 2-year
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
No.
typically with capital projects, we need to spend the money within we have a 3-year window of opportunity to spend the money. If it's not spent in 3 years, it goes back to the general fund, typically, unless it's a bond project and, anticipated to be longer than that.
Okay. Okay, so there's no concern there then?
No.
Oh, good, good. And one last item was that I saw that on the general fund budget, page 9, under recycling, looks like tipping fees are way down. Here we are, 10/12 of the year over. We spent only 2/3 of the budget, and I was wondering if those numbers are telling a story about recycling success. So we've got a budget of $328,000 for tipping fees, but we've only spent $222 with $105,000 left. So I was just wondering why. I mean, is there good news there?
There is, probably is not as good as this shows, but we do anticipate that we will end up with some additional savings in our tipping fees. However, not to the extent of being at 68%. We should be, closer to an 83%, something like that.
Right.
Because
We're probably a month
we have
behind
we're about a month behind in
Yeah, just some
the billing, so.
Oh,
More on some of
But we will not be,
Shouldn't be over.
we won't be over budget. We will have some savings in that line item, but not to the extent of that books.
oh, I see. That's simply because of the timing of the cash.
Timing of the bills,
That's right.
payment of the bills.
Okay, okay, so this is a cash flow statement.
That's right. Pretty much what's
Okay.
in there and
Yeah.
encumbered.
Well, great, thank you very much.
Nora?
So just one question, because when Chris asked about the West River Park, it made me think of, in Carol's report, she mentioned the idea of pre-bid opening, and what does that mean? One, and two, can we make sure that the actual bid openings are in a public place, because that's happening in the SVU office. It's in her report.
We're pre-bid openings.
Yes, something about
She has pre-bid meetings.
Pre-bid
They have
meetings,
two
okay.
different pre-bid meetings, and that's typical on bigger projects where the bidders, where you want them to see the site.
Oh,
and they
okay,
go
so
over-
before they put the bids in.
Before they put the
okay,
bids in,
that's-
they
that's
have a
what-
meeting,
uh-huh.
yeah.
That-
And all
that's
of
what I
our,
was-
bid openings,
Okay,
we tend to do it Wednesdays at 10 o'clock, and that's always in the bid document.
okay. And I just, it wasn't completely explained, so this explains what that means. Thank you.
David's question?
Yeah, one last thing.
One last
Barb.
question.
I just want reassurance on that parking fund, because I knew...
You're fine.
We're fine, okay. That's what,
We probably, well,
Your nose is growing.
we could do worse. I guess what I would say is, considering some of the negative things that have occurred, to kind of some of the things that have occurred over the last 10 months, the parking budget is actually in very good shape. we had a winter of snow removal that was probably worse than we've seen since I've been here. And we're gonna, you know, we're gonna have those, I think. And that is really, if I were to go back and look at it. Where's the stupid thing? The revenue, what we have struggled with in the past is actually hitting our revenue marks. And I really feel we've gotten a lot better at doing the projections for our revenue. I'm actually surprised that our meter revenue, as I said, is where it is. Some of that probably has to do with the fact that we've replaced some meters. We've done, the new meters help because they're not down as often. We've gotten rid of meters that weren't working all the time, so we've done just some regular maintenance things that will assist with that. With regard to expenditures, the one, you know, again, the one that really hit us this year was, you know, 35,000 over on our snow removal. That's a hard one to budget. You can budget. Do you budget for your worst? Maybe we should with this fund. Do you budget for your worst, or do you budget for your average? You know, one would hope that with an enterprise fund you can budget for your average, that you have enough in, because again, business fund, that you'd have enough that if there was a problem that you have enough cash to handle that. The problem is that we don't have a lot of cash. The depreciation that would be used to fund some of our capital, additional capital improvements, is really being utilized, almost all of it, for our bond payment, the principal of our bond payment. And that's a problem for that fund right now. So, you know, are we going to be, I think, you know, I'm hoping we're going to be at a zero. You know, I mean, the parking fund is a problem. You shouldn't have an enterprise fund that has a fund total at zero. You should be budgeting. You should be budgeting. Revenue should be higher than your expenditures.
And if I may, we do have, I don't present the balance sheets for each of these funds. It's just that many more pages that would almost double this report. But we do have a cash balance in the parking fund, but we've not.
Right.
We've been reducing that cash balance
Every
for the
year.
last couple of years, and so, you know, it's not inexhaustible. That fund is going down, and so I think probably one of the biggest issues is the first 5 years of the fund. We had a $100,000 a year grant. I'm not sure what it was, but it was $100,000 a year grant that went away
From the state.
And I'm not sure, you know, some of the projections were as realistic as they could have been at that time. But I think it's looking better. One of the things that I noticed on here that might concern you, the era parking lights that shows a negative 9170. But if you look up at the top, in the revenue side, there's also a revenue of $7,100. That's a carryover of a grant from last year. We had a $55,000 grant, I think, to put in parking lights. And it was an era grant. And the difference between the 71 and the 91 was our match for that grant. And it just, you know, we spent most of it last year, and this was just what was left of that. So the real shortfall in that is our match, which was a couple $1,000.
Which we will be, had the project didn't get finished as early as in the year, in this fiscal year, as we had hoped, because actually that you pay cash for the match, obviously, but some of the electrical savings would have covered more of that had we had it done a little bit earlier. We're seeing savings because of that project in electrical costs. And had it been done closer to the beginning of, had we gotten it done closer to the beginning of the year, some of the savings in the electric, it would have actually covered the cost of the match.
Okay. David's question? You good?
Well, I was just concerned about what trend we have looking toward next year and the year after. I mean, let's just assume that we have an average snow year next year and an average snow year beyond that. Is it likely that we'd run a small surplus beyond that based on what you're looking at?
We would hope we would.
I think there's a number of issues, and more on the revenue side. We had a lot of construction last summer, which tied up some of the parking. Now we've got, the sidewalk work plus the Brooks House fire, which is also, and which is eating into our revenues on the street side, is, I think, in the parking lot side too, though.
Right. Yes.
So, those things will go away eventually.
Our system wasn't 100% throughout the whole summer. And some of the meters that were not being utilized were on the Main Street side, which are our more expensive meters. So, that's an issue. That was a problem.
Okay. So this is going to be a source of concern going forward then? We'll just have to be hawk-eyeing this particular enterprise fund?
Certainly in a budget that we need to.
It has been, and it will continue.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say that there's not a budget that you have that's not of concern.
Right.
I mean, there's, you'll be the utilities budget looks good because you have this surplus, but you'll be looking tomorrow at your debt service and how that gets paid back over the next 20 years, how you're paying back $32 million, and you're going to see it's a pretty fragile system as well.
Okay.
I don't think there are, and not to be all doom and gloom, but because it's not, it's just the reality in which we're living that budgets are tight. There's probably nobody's budget that's not tight. Parking is not flush. It hasn't been flush for years, and it was at one point. It's not now, and it probably won't be for another 10 years. And that's when we'll have that $4 million debt paid off. The utilities you'll see tomorrow is, between your wastewater and your water, you've got some struggles on both of those. You've got a lot of capital infrastructure improvements that need to be made that are going to really stretch the budget. And your general fund, as you look at that budget, it looks like we're doing good, but the reality in the budget is you've got a lot of infrastructure, again, a lot of infrastructure improvements that aren't in there that are going to cause a struggle. The biggest hurdle for the municipality, and as probably any municipality, is going to be in our capital. And how do you pay for it, and how do you repair it, and how do you stay on top of huge infrastructure issues? When you have how many miles of road, when you have how many miles of water pipe and wastewater and sewer pipe, and when you have buildings that are old, and we have a lot of them. So, the budget we tend to think of as, the services we provide and the people we pay, but it's bigger than that. And all of our budgets, I think, are fairly delicately balanced given those hurdles. But it doesn't make us special. It makes us the same as everybody else.
Okay, thanks.
Dora?
Well, I just want to comment to Chris that back in the beginning of the parking fund, when the parking garage was first built, there was, a $70,000 grant that came, that was an annual thing that was part of the FTA?
That was the 5-year 100. It wasn't FTA.
100,000.
That was state downtown money.
So that was part of you know, how the parking fund was able to sort of stay above during that time, but then that money went away.
Mhm.
And the hope was that the fund would operate on its own with the revenues that it was getting, but it's been a struggle ever since.
And it may be at some point, I don't think this year, but I think it's not going to be to the, you know, the board's going to need to decide whether you continue with that as an enterprise fund, whether it truly meets the definition of an enterprise fund.
And in that case, what would happen if we decided not to?
General fund?
Would slide over most likely to the general fund.
Or slide over to the general fund.
So it would be.
I'm not proposing that, I'm saying that that should be a discussion that the board should have and just have in a meaningful way at some point. If a fund is not able to sustain it, if revenue cannot sustain the expenses and sustain the system, is it really an enterprise fund? Is it truly a business fund? If it's a business fund, how many years does a business go into the negative? And that's the idea. Same is true, you know. And as we had a discussion before, all of our bonds are general obligation bonds, and they're not revenue bonds. And there's a reason for that, because of the revenue, neither the revenue in our utilities nor the revenue in our parking is to the extent that we could actually get a revenue bond.
Oh, we wouldn't be eligible to get a revenue bond anyway, I see.
No.
We wouldn't meet the.
We would meet the
The
requirements.
coverage requirements,
I
which
see.
are usually 1.5, 1.25 to 1.5% of your operating expenses, O&M, operation and maintenance. Bond rating agencies, you know, if they're looking at basically balanced budgets in an enterprise fund, they're not going to, you're not going to get anything more than a junk bond rating. Whereas with a general obligation, you have the tax back. I mean, what general obligation means that if you don't have enough money to service the debt, you have to raise taxes.
And to talk about a little bit more about infrastructure, as we're talking about the police and fire, because that's the next one, is, so you're always making choices about what you're going to do. And, you know, we've got a police department that's working in this facility with a jail that's downstairs, with steps that go down, that I have continued to say I think is a great liability, many reasons, with, you know, a system that where, you know, you walk in, you wouldn't even know there was a police department here, you don't see anybody. It's split by an aisle. You have the central fire station. We've had to have a, you know, structural engineer look at that because of cracks that were getting down the walls in the fire station that are causing us some concern with the building there.
And ventilation.
And we have ventilation problems there. We don't have an HVAC system in that building, so you have these huge machines that are operating, and there's not a good ventilation system. So with that, then the four suggestions that were made as viable options are a combined police and fire public safety facility at Western Avenue near Exit 2. This would combine 2 fire stations and the police station. You'd build it, and a second option is build a new facility to combine the 2 fire stations in on the Western Avenue site and renovate the police station where it sits in the municipal center. Purchase a vacant building behind the present central fire station, tear it down, and build a new combination central fire police facility. That would be utilizing the adjoining municipal parking lot, and you would also then have renovations at Station 2 in West Brattleboro. And the fourth would be purchase a vacant building behind the present fire station, tear it down, build a new central fire station, and then do renovations both at Station 2 in West Brattleboro and renovations to the police station where it sits in the municipal center.
Well, just one more thing, just because we talked about this, and that is that I think we should be looking at the possibility of doing a planning grant for this year to assess the whole infrastructure but that's what our planning grant should be this year. Because we've got issues with this building, and we've got issues with, what?
Any further questions here?
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. B.
Open investment brokerage account. Now John's going to talk about what we're going to, how we're going to invest all our money.
All of our surplus money.
There you go.
So actually, as you recall, we approved a new investment policy last month. And following up with that, I've been talking with different brokers, and Dave Johari from Smith Barney comes highly recommended. He's very active in New England, mostly in Massachusetts and Connecticut, with working with municipalities. And so what I'd like to do is open an account with him. I do need a corporate resolution to authorize myself and the assistant treasurer to do transactions within brokerage. We're looking primarily at spreading out CDs. I don't think we're going to get anything more aggressive than that at this point, but we do have the $13 million from the wastewater plant that's sitting in a 0.10% bank account that I'm sure we can improve the yield on that and keep it just as safe as it is in the bank account. We could probably quadruple that rate, which still isn't much, but it's better than what we're getting. David has been very helpful in making suggestions on how we can improve the yield and maintain the security of those funds. So I'm asking to open an account with him.
Well, let's get a motion on the floor.
I move to adopt the enabling resolution authorizing the town treasurer and assistant treasurer to conduct business, sign checks, and transfer funds necessary to make and liquidate investments with the investment brokerage firm of Morgan Stanley Smith Barney.
Further discussion? Dora?
I just want to say, this is exactly what I was kind of concerned about when we talked about changing the policy. I think it sort of is counter to what a lot of the movement has been in the community about local investment. I'm not going to support that. If we want local investment, if we want people to invest, we need to provide the leadership for the community as a town.
This doesn't prohibit us from investing locally. It's just the broker is out of town. He can still invest in local banks as well as others. There's not one bank that can provide the type of return that we can by spreading the money around. I don't know how to put it any clearer than that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Wyndham Solid Waste Management District Agreement, and Bob, I'm just going to let you talk to this because you've been doing a lot more of the negotiation.
I'm going to recuse myself on this.
Sure. For much of the past year, we've been trying to negotiate a host town agreement between the town of Brattleboro and the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District, which would be an agreement whereby the town of Brattleboro would somehow be compensated for being the town which actually hosts the facility. And we've, to make a long story short, gone round and round with different proposals of payments in lieu of taxes and different types of host town agreements. And the latest one, which has sort of been the one which has garnered the most support from Wyndham Solid Waste, is to, and what you have in front of you is a letter from their attorney, Chris Callahan, but what they would like is the board's authorization for the town manager to enter into an agreement, we then can hash out the particulars. But what it would be is that they would give us what would amount to an 8% credit toward the town's assessment that's paid to Wyndham Solid Waste Management District. So our dues that go as part of being part of the district, we would get an 8% credit on those dues. That amounts to about the same amount that we were talking about in other avenues of preparing a host agreement. So the dollar figure is roughly the same, and from our standpoint, it's a very nice, simple formula as compared to some of the more complex formulas we were dealing with. So our request is to have the board authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement to that effect with Wyndham Solid Waste Management District.
Well, let's get a motion on the floor.
I can move first, but I have a question. You want me to move first?
You move it first and go into
All right.
discussion.
So I move to authorize the town manager and the town attorney to enter into an agreement with the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District that provides for a credit of the town's assessment equal to 8% of the town's assessment.
Question?
Bob, can you please explain why our hosting the facility, or the town's hosting the facility, is worth $11,624, which is what the 8% credit would be this year?
Let me give you the background on that. Ever since they started the facility, the town essentially taxed them, even though the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District is in and of itself a municipality that enjoys tax-exempt status. But for many years, and I don't know the exact history of when it began, but I think my sense of it is that they just said, as far as Brattleboro being the host, we just continue to tax, and roughly that 11,000 was was close in value to what the Lister's office had assessed the property for. So that's where that rough figure of the 12,000, somewhere in there, came to. And then the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District said, well, we're exempt. We researched that. We said, yes, you are as a municipality, but the law provides for a host town agreement. And a host town has various liabilities to it with increased truck traffic, the actual site,
Fire protection.
The various things that go with being the host. So this was a way to come to the same, about the same value that we were getting in taxes. And what, so that's where that 8% came. It just equaled out to be 8% of what our assessment is to them.
So this isn't really quantifying the actual expenses that we incur yearly to be the host, but rather this 8% is essentially a proxy for what we would otherwise collect in taxes from the Solid Waste Management District if they weren't exempt.
It's closer to a payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's closer to a pilot payment.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, and 4-0 and 1 abstention. Recusal.
Corky Owell is here for the next agreement. I think there's some other people here as well, aren't there? Yeah. If you want to come on up and have a seat at the table. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name.
My name's Becca.
Becca. Okay. I was just in an email with you today, and I apologize. If you just want to introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name's Becca Schaefer. I work for Valley Cares in Townsend, but I'm working with Hilltop House in this project.
I'm Susanna Shapiro, I'm the director of Hilltop House.
Corky Elwell, I'm a director on the board, Hilltops.
And the board may recall that they had approved, the board approved applying for a $30,000 planning and feasibility study for Hilltop House. And this is actually, the board is asked tonight to actually accept and appropriate that $30,000 VCDP grant. And it went through the process, and it was finalized, and all the, there are award conditions on here. And this grant is actually going to be administered by Becca and Bob. So if you want to just spend just a little bit of time, again, just reminding people what you're going to do with that grant and what your time frame is for it, that'd be great.
Yep. This grant is a $30,000 planning grant from the Vermont Community Development Program, and it is funding a feasibility study, a feasibility phase of assessing Hilltop House to determine what the future level of care, which level of care they will provide, and then also what architectural and engineering plans will be necessary to upgrade or renovate the building, or possibly expand the building to meet that level of care and the market area. As I said, the budget's $30,000. Of that, $1,500 is going towards the town as far as administering the grant, and much of the grant administration is going to be done by Bob and myself, but there are a few things such as legal work that the town will be doing. So that's how the $1,500 is going to the town. As far as timeline, we're looking at hopefully getting this ball rolling very soon as far as getting the RFP out there for the architectural and engineering. But our first step is to complete the environmental review process. So we're going to fill out those forms within the next few days and get them out to the state. By May and June, we're looking at doing more of the preliminary hiring as far as the specialists, the architects, the engineers, the historic preservation consultants. And then by September, we plan to have the preliminary building design and the permits that would be necessary for the project. And then we're looking at September also having our cost estimate, and then by October wrapping up this planning phase of the project and getting our final reporting into the VCDP staff. Throughout this, we're looking at drawing the grant funds one, maybe two times. The first draw would likely be in August, and then the last would be October. So, I guess that basically states it.
Would you like to add anything else? You're
We're
good.
very grateful for the grant.
There you go. If I could have a motion?
I move to accept and appropriate a $30,000 VCDP grant for the planning and feasibility study for Hilltop House.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you, and good luck going forward.
Thank you very much.
Next, Moss Kaler is here as our lone recycling coordinator to give us an update on the enforcement of recyclables in trash. As I said in my memo, well, last time Moss and Cindy came, there was quite a bit of time that was spent on the waste audit. Moss isn't here to talk about the waste audit tonight. He'll be coming back again at another time when Cindy's available to talk about the waste audit again. So this is just in reference to enforcement. And Moss.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak to you again. I think it's been about a month, and Cindy's off in the Caribbean on a delayed honeymoon, so, and I imagine it's a lot warmer and sunnier there. When we last came and spoke to you, we talked about trash auditing, which has been tabled and pushed aside, and so we don't need to discuss that tonight, but maybe at a later date. We also spoke about enforcement, and Cindy was also joined with Peter Cooper on that board meeting a while ago, and we talked afterwards, and we weren't perfectly clear as to whether the board gave the go-ahead to us to go ahead and start enforcement. It certainly, we weren't clear on that, and that's one reason I wanted to come back to you tonight. In between that meeting and tonight, the Triple T drivers, on a period of a few days, under my request through Peter Gaskell, Triple T, I asked them to, at the end of their route on a few days, to bring back like one bag of trash that they felt categorically contained recyclables without opening it, with the prodding that we talked about, prodding, shaking, looking at it and feeling it. I wanted to be sure that when we stickered bags, that we could feel confident, at as close to 100% as possible, that the bags we stickered would indeed have not only a little bit of recycling in it, but a lot of recycling. And I have photographs, I don't know if you want to look at them or not, of, there's two sets. That's a set, and that's a set. We had 9 bags, and we opened them up. We weighed them prior to opening them up, and then we opened them up and separated out the recyclables. And so we had 2 piles, a pile of recycling and a pile of non-recycling or trash. And those are the pictures with the percentages under them. And they range from 30% recycling to one bag, which I did not take a picture of, that had 100% recycling. It was all bottles and cans, 100%. The other 8 bags that you have pictures of range from 81% by weight recycling to 30%. Peter Cooper helped me, and he's in one of those pictures. It was very clear that the drivers could identify bags with copious amounts of recycling in them. Consequently, I would like to, on Thursday, in a couple days, go with one of the Triple T drivers, either Kevin or Kenny, on his route on Thursday and sticker 20 bags similar to these, ones that we can feel with absolute certainty have recycling in them. So there can be no question if the customer should call Callista or Barb or any of you board members, that you can all say with confidence that that bag was determined to contain recyclables. So we'd sticker the 20 bags. We would leave the letter that you have in your packet, and I also gave a copy to the media. This letter would explain to the customer why the bag was left behind, what they're to do with it. It would include educational information about what's recyclable and what's not, as well as how to prepare the recyclables for the curbside. And it gives them phone numbers to contact with any questions. I'll be around to take calls or help people. We want to make this both educational. I mean, it's not 100% enforcement. We want to explain to people who have questions. We want to help people. I'll go to their house and talk to them about recycling. If they would like me to, I'll suggest on how they might arrange bins in their house so they can separate recyclables from their trash. I would be happy to do that. And I guess I'll leave it and see if you have any questions.
Moss is interested in beginning this on Thursday.
Let me just add also that I think we just do Thursday, we do a specific number of houses. We would record their addresses, so if people called in and said, I live at such and such a street, the list would be aware that they called. And it's going to be very interesting. I think I'm sort of would be on pins and needles to see what's going to happen. Are people going to be angry? Are they going to be baffled? Are they going to go, I knew I should have been recycling. I guess I'm going to finally have to, get along and, come along into the 21st century and get into recycling like most everybody else is. It's hard to know exactly how many people in Brattleboro are recycling to the absolute most they can, and how many are sort of in that middle land where they're recycling and doing a good job. They might be able to do a bit better. And how many are not recycling at all. But it would be my guess that around somewhere between 10 and 15% of the households in Brattleboro are not recycling at all. And I could be off on that percentage, but that would be my guess. So it's around 320 to 400 households in town, I believe, are not recycling at all. And those people we don't know, if they're watching this on BCTV, we don't know if they're reading the paper or listening to the radio, if they got the mailing that we sent out. I would certainly hope they did, that we sent out a couple months ago. Read articles in the paper. And I think there's a lot of people who are nervous about enforcement, and it's understandable. I think some people might be nervous thinking like, gosh, if I miss one bottle, if I miss one can or one newspaper or magazine, am I going to get my trash rejected? Well, there's no way we can determine one bottle, one can, one newspaper in trash. We're only going to be able to reject those bags, as I said, have lots of recycling in it. And one, we don't want to make a mistake. That's the biggest thing.
And just to clarify, I'm not really looking for an action from the board tonight. This was more of an update to let the board know that that the enforcement was going to begin, so that if you hear about it, you know that it was happening. There's another opportunity to let the public know that it's happening, and that's really what we're doing here tonight.
And if I could take another 2 minutes, I just want to say that we're continuing to do media thing. You might have seen our first monthly column in the Reformer this past Monday. We're going to have they've given us one column space per month, so the third Monday of each month. Cindy will do the next column, and then Cindy and I alternate. We're just started a monthly radio show with Steve West on his Live and Local, also on the third Monday of the month. We've been doing weekly Friday radio shows with Fish in the Morning every Friday. We've been on BCTV twice with Tim Johnson, WTSA. We've done some things in his studio with him on the air. We're also hoping to get a unit, or I'm not sure what the technical parade term is, but a Brattleboro Recycles unit in the 4th of July parade. We'll use the street banner and have that lead our group. Have placards that give tips and information about recycling and whatnot. I've started, not just started, but continuing conversations with Peter Gaskell about developing another cow site. And I talked with Barb about that on Thursday to get that up going. And Adora also wants to see that happen real soon. So we'll try to get that going. And then also Peter's ready to start work, not immediately, but get going and get to the nitty-gritty planning of doing his pilot compost curbside pickup. And that is going to be by subscription. He's not going to, it's not town-wide, and he's going to want people to sign up for that service. So this might be the first opportunity to say publicly, if there are people out there who would like to participate in that pilot study and have their compost picked up curbside every 2 weeks. You might send the name in to Peter at Triple T or Barb or the town office and just we'll put a list together and we can get it to Peter and start working on that.
A couple of questions. I'm not sure, I know you're not a proponent of it, but I think pay and display, you know, pay for what you, pay as you throw,
Yeah.
would probably have done all this effort here. There seems to be a whole lot of work going into this where pay as you throw might have eliminated a lot of this. But having said that, when we talk about leaving the trash on the curbside, what's the town's, how does the town enforce a person to pick up his trash and take it off the curbside?
The ordinance says that they can't leave it on the street for more than 24 hours.
I don't remember that.
No, if we have trouble, with trash, we will call the people or go by.
Okay.
Public Works will.
Okay.
And the ordinance also says that there basically 2 times trash can be left, and town will notify them, leave them information or send them a letter. And if they should have recyclables a 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th time, that's when fines would kick in, and I certainly hope we never get to that.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. And we're hoping to start this Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
This Thursday. I actually thought I saw somebody leaving, one of the haulers today, leaving a note on a trash bag.
That could have been on recycling. It shouldn't have been trash. They're still continuing to do recycling if they put the recyclables in plastic bags,
Right.
or have it mixed, their paper and containers mixed. Andre's been moving right along with that, and I think that's going pretty smoothly. He's putting out fewer and fewer stickers.
So that's
each
what I
week.
saw today.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably.
Dora?
I so don't think we're ready for this, and I'm also in disagreement about what the town meeting's intent was for the recycling coordinators in the first place, because I really feel like it was about education and outreach and not about enforcement. I'm really distressed by the letter that goes along with this, that's supposed to go with the bags that are getting rejected. I think it's really punitive. I don't think that the plan takes into consideration the fact that we have 50% renters and that landlords are going to be stuck dealing with the trash that their tenants have on their property. I don't think that there's any, because it's so harsh about the fact that you can't call and get your trash picked up if it's been rejected. There's no avenue if a mistake has been made, and mistakes will be made. That's a concern. There's still so much confusion out there, even among super recyclers, about what's recyclable, how to put it out, and so we're not ready for this. We've got a lot of different ways that we need to reach people, and we had that discussion today in the Solid Waste Committee about an organization that Jane Southworth visited, where she heard from citizens just saying that they're still unsure about recycling. They haven't seen all of the things of recycling. They're really worried about enforcement and this issue of it being so punitive. And I've been hearing this from people for a long time, from a lot of different citizens, people concerned about it being punitive. I'm really, obviously we're not voting on anything, but I don't support doing this at this time. I really wish that the time of the recycling coordinators would be spent doing the education and outreach first. To me, this is sort of the last resort. We want people to be good recyclers, and the danger is that people will get angry, and then it'll be difficult to reach them after that.
Ken?
Is this letter copied and done?
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean, it'd be great to just add a sentence at the start, just saying why it's good, why recycling is good.
Sure.
It's not in there. So just, I mean, truly just right at the start. I mean, it says as part of Brattleboro's campaign to increase the recycling rate and to enforce the mandatory recycling ordinance, but I think it would certainly help the tone quite a bit to just add, and this is how this can help
Sure.
us all.
Be glad to do that. Good for the environment and for the budget.
And people's souls.
Yeah. Well, you know,
That's so
yeah, well, I think everybody who has embraced recycling, everybody feels good about it.
They live
feel
longer.
good about, like you feel good about donating blood at the Red Cross when they come to the Elks. I mean, it's something that's literally painful, and yet you do it. And recycling is not painful. It's a bother. It's an extra step that people have to take. So we've talked about many times on the radio shows that people have to think, you know, for people who have been recycling for a long time, they still have to think because they come up to that odd item. Oh my God, is this recyclable or not? I mean, when you recycle a lot, you get to think that every piece of plastic must be recyclable, and it's frustrating to throw that plastic bag or that blister pack out or something like that, or a combination item that's both paper and plastic. You know, you see both those items and you know they're recyclable, but they're built into like a pet food bag, and you can't recycle it. So there's some items that's just, you know, they have to go in the trash, and for the top-notch recyclers, that's frustrating. But for the people who are not recycling at all, you know, they're throwing all their bottles and their cans and their milk jugs and their newspapers and all that stuff. And these are the people that I think after all the years that we've had the MRF and the mandatory recycling ordinance, and many, not all, but many of these people have kids and they've been through the school and there's been a lot of education there, and all the things that Cindy and I have done in the last few months. There's very, very few people out there not aware that recycling is an option anyway, that it can be done.
Dora?
Well, I'm just going to disagree with Moss because I think there is so much more that the Solid Waste District over the years could have done as far as education, and there's so much more the town could have done. And that there's still people out there that, that it's just the whole process is confusing and it's difficult. Yes, it takes work, but there's so much outreach that needs to be done before we do this.
David?
I'll respectfully disagree. I don't think that it's particularly difficult to recycle and to separate paper and plastic out of the waste stream. I think that the time that we've given the recycling coordinators to do their work is limited. There was discussion about extending their work at town meeting that was rejected. It seems like a timeline has been established. There's been outreach going on. I have no problem with beginning enforcement at this time.
Hey, Moss, I've seen a couple of things. I wonder if you could help those of us who are really trying. I saw somewhere, I guess I was down in South Hadley on the weekend, and there was a sign somewhere that said, if you can rip it, you can recycle it.
That's pretty much true with paper, like the Tyvek envelopes. There's bound to be exceptions to every rule, as there often is, but that's a pretty good rule when it comes to paper items.
Yeah, I thought I'd offer that as something perhaps for your next round of education.
Right.
And the other is that with the Rotary Club, we were up doing a painting project at Hilltop House a couple of weeks ago, and their staff had put together an 8.5 by 11 hand-drawn thing that showed all kinds of stuff that can be recycled in the compost stream that I had no clue about, and I thought that was really insightful, and I'd just ask if maybe you could incorporate those two and maybe look into other things, because wonderful though the COW poster is, I realized it's not complete, and I also realized that you really build a skill set trying to do all these things, and that it's really effective to do these. I've started to do this at our house, the recycling and then the composting. And what I found was that last week there was so pathetically little trash in my trash bin, I didn't bother to put it out.
Right.
I mean, it only went like that deep. the possibilities seem to be really substantial, and more outreach even to people who are pulling hard
Right.
would be helpful, I think.
Well, that's where both the cow and the pilot compost curbside is going to make a big impact, and
Good.
and we will continue to reach out with education aspect.
When will the curbside compost pickup start?
That would be a better question specifically for Peter Gaskell, but I'm hoping before the summer's out that we can get that pilot study going. You know, he's got to figure it out. You know, it's a little different as a pilot study as it would be town-wide. He has said in his contract, Barb, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're just about to enter their 3rd year of their 5-year contract, and they said in years 4 and 5, so a little more than a year from now, they would do it town-wide.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, next up, there he is, Barry. Barry Lane is here to talk about Brat's Skate art spots.
There's no,
I have,
And
Can I see that?
Sure.
Sure.
Why
No one
don't you
has
scroll
anything for
on,
this, right? We have no
These are,
materials.
what Barry's been working on, are kind of movable, skatable, structures that also have beauty to them. And what he's here tonight to do is to basically talk about the project publicly, because I don't know if he's been able to do that too much yet, and as well as seek permission from the board to place the structures on some public, on town-owned properties. In particular, I think what we've talked about is the parking lot up at the skating rink, and possibly a basketball court up at the Memorial Park area too. That was another possibility I think that Carol came up with.
By the tennis courts?
No, down below, right by the swimming pool, there's a basketball court right behind the swimming pool.
But the
You have
parking
the-
lot, but the skating rink is by.
That would be the parking lot, I think, where they're talking about, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And then these would, again, the whole idea of these is that they are not permanent, but that they can go from area to area. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Barry, who knows more than anybody.
Is there anything you would like me to particularly begin with? Would you like history, or shall we go right
Let's just
into
talk a little bit about
project?
briefly about the history if you want, because I do think it has it is relevant to the conversation, and then just talk about the pictures that you handed out. That'd be great.
Great. So I'm going to do a real drive-by on my involvement and how I got involved. I've been in town for 22 years, and I have 2 teenage children. I got back into skating about 7 years ago with my son. At that point, seeing the dearth of skating venues in town, I became activated in trying to help that happen somewhere. So I was one of the motivating people in the Living Memorial Project, and then subsequently the Group 30 Project, and after that, BASIC. So still presently, there is not a venue other than the private Boys and Girls Club, which I do volunteer at, and I see a forever rotating and thriving scene. Many of the people that I began seeing skating as elementary students have now moved out of the area as college students. So for me, it's been an arc of increasing frustration, but also increasing passion, because it's something, for some reason, nothing I ever expected. It's something that I found a joy in. And one of the aspects of my own practice and my own health is connecting with a group of older skaters in Boston, 75 or so, mostly men, who skate in various parks all around New England. So my feeling is I live here, I'm a teacher, I've been working in recreation my whole life, and I want the town to reflect a progressive and awesome opportunity for something that is popular worldwide. the opportunity for this particular project came up last year at Go Skateboarding Day, which was it's a worldwide celebration, in the Brattleboro chapter on the Crow Lot. In attendance was Michael Singer, who is either the chairperson or the point person for the Burnmill Foundation. He saw the thriving scene, he recognized that there was a lack, and he, as an initiative to jumpstart some sort of progress in town, offered a grant to fund temporary sculptures or temporary skate elements. Through negotiations with Basic in the town, whether I'm not really exactly sure where the fix was, whether it was because it was geared towards the waterfront, which was in flux at the time. That grant ended up not being accepted by Basic in the town, and I felt that that money would still provide a great opportunity, and I wanted to pursue that. So I continued with him, and shortly thereafter he informed me that he had met a student where he is an adjunct professor or a visiting scholar, and his student was a skateboarder identified by one of his teaching assistants, who's an artist and an industrial designer and a skateboarder. So we began conceiving this project, which would bring aesthetic appreciation to non-skaters, but also offer opportunities for skaters of every level. There were hundreds of emails and sketches back and forth between the skater and myself, trying to ensure that the pieces had sculptural integrity, that they were part of an artistic tradition, which is something you can see in work of Tony Smith and in the Minimalists. We wanted to make sure that the pieces were accessible to beginners, but yet also challenging to more intermediate and advanced skaters, and they needed to be mobile. For me, the most exciting breakthrough was when the design took the turn that these 4 modular pieces can all be connected if that was the opportunity, or they could all be standalone pieces. So with the potential for endless configurations, it seemed that this was a great opportunity for a temporary solution while the raising of the funds is yet to happen for the permanent park. Something that would give maybe visibility to skating and maybe take some of the edges and the sort of negative stereotypes that people often have. And also in itself, and for me this is particularly exciting, kind of reverse the formula, which is that skaters see a piece of interesting architecture or a piece of interesting terrain, and their only access is as outlaws, so they're instantly trespassers. And I thought it would be really interesting to turn that upside down, to have the pieces have the same sculptural integrity, but actually be legal. I'm well aware of the worldwide ramifications. Barcelona used to be the skate mecca of the world because of its tremendous architecture. Skate teams go there and film. Tremendous opportunities in the same vein. Things that were not made to be skated are skated. They have now started to enforce selectively the skatability of the whole town, but now other areas in Spain have picked up the slack where Barcelona has cracked down. So I'm well aware of all the civic concerns, but I also know it's a tremendously healthful activity, and it's something that I would just love to see established in town.
So we're looking here for action by the board to the 2 recommended spots. What's your recommendation for notification for setting up an either-or spot, and also the insurance requirement?
There are a couple things. One is that Carol Allott, Recreation Director, has identified times when that parking lot at the skating rink would be available, and I believe she's also acknowledged a couple of times for the basketball court. I think those are real specific dates, that there are some
The
possibilities.
basketball courts were somewhat congruous with the opening of the pool.
With the opening,
So that would
right.
be a 2-day window.
Right.
And the
That's
upper
it.
lot
Right.
was a 2-week window in the middle of August.
Mhm.
And that lot is a favorable lot in terms of its expanse, but the surface is not great.
Mhm.
So if you consider ice skating on the meadows compared to on the Zamboni surface, that's a fair enough analogy.
As the memo says, we did talk, I called up the Vermont League Property and Casualty Insurance Fund, which is where we get our liability insurance, to ask them what they might recommend. Their recommendation was that you seek, that the project obtain insurance and that the town be named as an assured, and that in addition, a hold harmless agreement is recommended. The option of insurance is really not an option because this is kind of a one-person project at this point. And so Barry does not have the insurance and would not be able to add the town as an insurer. That does not mean you can't move forward on it. It just means that you'd be moving forward with these limited times, and that we wouldn't be there wouldn't be that we wouldn't be added as an insurer. The hold harmless agreement could be done between Barry and the town, and as well as that's one of the reasons I think that this is the sign.
Which is in its just earliest draft stage, and in fact, in point of fact, it was put together by a graphic artist who works with Michael without the specific target, so the language could
Right.
very well change.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you would add kind of skate at your own risk. It's just really clear. We do have, this is unique, and it's also, we have some similar projects that we've done. One is that, you have skating at your own, or sledding at your own risk at Living Memorial Park. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get sued. You can always get sued. That's really, the question before the board is what risk you want to take on this. This is, I will ask Barry if you've lined up other venues and where those might be.
I have a list of the people I've contacted. Can I just digress a little and address the insurance?
Sure.
There's two things that strike me as a skater. One is that it is legal to skate in the avenues in the outer parts of town, not downtown. So that same risk would in fact be prevalent in the skate elements. So at that point, there is I would imagine, an assumed skate at your own risk policy. The Vermont law, Vermont statute 1037 says a person who takes part in any sport accepts as a matter of law dangers that adhere therein insofar as they are obvious and necessary.
Right.
So that basic law, which allows ski areas to operate, I believe is a de facto exemption.
It is what allows people to put up this, do this activity at your own risk signs. That is true. Yeah.
So I feel that element and the fact that there are many uninsured physical activities as well as everyday risks, tennis and basketball, create a situation where skaters are, I believe, unnecessarily put in an incongruous and inconsistent position. Not to say that there aren't risks, but I believe that there are risks in all physical activity. Now, one thing that I do bring to the meeting, and I can only say that it is apocryphal, but I have done research. Supposedly, the entire liability issue is a straw man, and that there has never been a skating liability case against any municipality ever. Now, whether that says that couldn't happen, I'm just bringing what my research has shown, that to me it's not an over and above risk, it's a risk that is part and parcel of urban life.
And I would say that just by being a municipality, that there's a certain amount of liability we have. And what you try to do, you can't protect yourself from anybody's suing, because anybody can do whatever they want, and you respond to what happens. What you try to do is mitigate a risk. And the question really before the board, I think, is, in the 2 weeks, or however many weeks that it might be at the skating rink, and the 2 days it would be at the basketball court, does the board feel that the risks associated with doing that are small enough that placing signs, skate at your own risk, and having kind of a hold harmless agreement with the person who's responsible for the structures is enough to mitigate that liability and that risk? And, I think,
What, can
I don't say that. I think that's just how I would phrase it, because I think it's a very limited time, it's a very limited exposure, and I bring it before the board just in kind of complete disclosure, but I think it's for the board to have that conversation.
Dora?
Well, the question I would have to that is, do we have that with any of the other activities that happen in our public parks?
The other activities that are in the public parks are on, the difference of this is that the other activities in our public parks that are, are on things that we've built, essentially, or that we're responsible. So the swimming pool is a swimming pool that we maintain and that we build, and people come and swim there. The basketball court is our basketball court. The skating rink is our skating rink. These aren't our structures, and that's really the difference. No, people don't go to, when they're sledding, we don't have people sign hold harmless. We have a hill, we have a sign that says sled at your own risk, and people sled.
Ken Schneck?
I have to say that I'm okay. I'm actually okay with the risk, and I think it's great. The location by the tennis courts, I do think is problematic. Those are two of the only public tennis courts in town, and as someone who avidly plays on those tennis courts, and people go there because it is kind of quiet, which is a tennis prerequisite. So I'm having a hard time reconciling the noise that's just associated with skating with being next to those tennis courts.
Well,
It's only 2
especially with
days.
that surface.
Oh, then
It's
great.
only 2 days.
No, the tennis courts.
Tennis
that
courts are
window
2
was,
weeks.
Looked at for a 2-week window in
Yeah.
August.
Oh, for a 2-week
2
window. The
weeks.
tennis courts were
But
2 weeks?
I
apologize.
think it's valuable to, just lay all the intentions on the table, because the hope was to create the opportunity for these pieces to live in Brattleboro. And a 2-day window, imagine saying to a swimmer, you have 2 days. It doesn't, I'm very appreciative of the 2-day window, but to me, the full manifestation would be for these pieces to find their temporary spots and make a rotation around town and have different kids in different neighborhoods learn the elements, adapt to the elements, and advance in the elements. So there's...
So what were the other spots that you've gotten?
I have, there are a list of people that I've sought, and almost exclusively, they are waiting to hear the response of the board.
Why?
So, because I think I think there's a perception that the public aspect of it needs to be addressed, and there is a curiosity as to where the board's position and leadership would be. For example, I asked the school district, and those lots, especially the elementary school lots, are potentially available with similar concerns, but Ron Staley's direct response was, let's see how it goes tonight.
But they understand this isn't a town project, right?
They absolutely understand the parameters, and as a district employee, I think I've laid it out as clean as I can without risking my job.
Did you go to the BUHS board?
I went to Ron Staley. I haven't gone to the high school board directly.
I would strongly recommend that you do that, because you have that parking lot up there that has several different tiers, which the surface is
Buttery
actually...
smooth?
Buttery
It's
smooth.
Doing your
That's
homework.
great service.
So does he not have
Well-
jurisdiction over that, or is it different?
Well, I mean, he's certainly the superintendent of schools, but that's a different board that functions a little bit differently than the Brattleboro Town School Board.
Yeah,
But I definitely, they should be part of the discussion.
absolutely. I have made requests to the Marlboro Grad Center lot, and the Brattleboro Museum is already involved as one of the partners of the project. So one of the hopes, even though I know that that was a high risk and about
Yeah, we're not,
low
you're not
percentage,
going to be there.
but even as a venue of recognition, even if
Right.
it doesn't end up being skated, I think the fact that they have
Correct.
endorsed the project, you know, and there is some connection between Marlboro's, again, everyone seems to be deferring. The answer from Marlboro is, let's see how it goes. So that's an aspect. There are several private businesses that have been contacted. No definite answer. Several private residences and barns, which if there is no other option, the pieces will probably end up staying there, and they'll be by invitation only. And then there's been movement in Putney and the town of Bellows Falls, as well as my older skater group in the Boston area for
Yeah.
there.
I'm Adam Hubbard, and I serve on the BASIC committee. And I would just like to say that I think skating is just a terrific artistic and athletic expression, and the skaters deserve a chance, and I think this is an awesome opportunity to get kids out there with the combination of art. I think I would really encourage you to take a little risk here and just give it a try. You know, the potential benefit could be great.
Thank you. Dora?
You mentioned all the different entities that you've been in connection with, and you said that they're waiting to see what the town is going to decide. Is there a clear understanding of the liability issues and who has the liability? I mean, I'm wondering if they're waiting because if this becomes a town, if they think this is a town thing,
No,
that the town has assumed
I
liability.
can't be 100% sure, but I think it's been very clearly delineated that if they were to land on public property, that would be the town's decision on their own liability, but if it's on private property, the liability is entirely with the owner of the business or whoever is on that lot. So I think it's more symbolic. That's my understanding.
Well, let's, Ken, and then I will. Ken?
Well, she's standing, she can go first.
Go ahead.
I'm Kate Anderson, Brattleboro. The summary provided for this evening's meeting reads in part, these structures would not only function as portable skate parks, but also be public art. So I want to address a slightly different, or not different, but an aspect of this that's been mentioned but hasn't really been explored. If it is to be considered public art, if it is on town property, then the Town Arts Committee would respectfully suggest it is appropriate to vet with the Town Arts Committee public arts policy. In fact, Mr. Lane has initiated this process, and it simply needs to be completed. TAC, the Town Arts Committee, welcomes public art projects. It aligns with one of TAC's goals, which was presented to the Select Board in January, which is to see more public art provided to the community. The public art policy addresses issues such as durability, accessibility to all artists, etc., quality of construction, and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So that was my first point. And then, you know, we're in a really weird spot right now, and I guess I'm not sure what form this conversation is taking, because quite frankly, I don't understand why these private places who would take on the liability to some degree are waiting for us who don't have jurisdiction over these places. So we can have a specific conversation about the places that are on town property. We can have a conversation about if we endorse generally movable skating structures, but the piece about people waiting to hear from us is just really confusing to me, because I certainly am not going to make a comment on whether this should be on property that we have absolutely no jurisdiction
Well,
over.
I don't think the decision it hinges on that. I think any of those private places would be a severe limitation in terms of the way the grant was intended. So they would end up in remote locations, more or less by invitation, and it would not serve the public in the way that the grant had hoped, which was to be a stopgap measure until the Crow lot is fully featured. So to say, yeah, there's something awesome, but you're not in, I mean, that would be the worst thing that I would ever want to have to face. But if the owner of the spot said 10 guys only, sorry, then I would be under that restraint. And I just feel like, I mean, one of the pictures you have is a spot that I've scoped as a potentially good spot, which is the back corner of the Elm lot. It's an area that there is never any parking.
And I would just like to, I apologize for interrupting you, but I do want to say that I thought I was really clear that I did not want, I really have an issue with putting movable skating pieces in any of the town parking lots.
Even if there was zero impact on parking spaces? Because there's a no parking line,
And
so it would be...
I guess I didn't make myself clear, because, yes, in any of the town-owned parking lots, because I believe that you say that those spots aren't utilized, however, they are utilized in different times by trucks. And also, if you'd heard the conversation earlier about our parking budget, I'm not interested in reducing our revenue in our parking lots. You would have to basically rent the lot for that to happen. And the same is true with the issue of if you put them in any of the town-owned lots. One of the reasons we were only looking at Living Memorial Park is because we have an ordinance that prohibits skateboarding in the downtown area on public property. We would have to do a rewrite of that ordinance or an edit to that ordinance, which would take some time, because you'd have to have 2 public readings. The other issue why I made it kind of clear about my concerns with the art museum and where they're doing their paving is because it's right at Malfunction Junction. We're having numerous problems, and it's right along 142. And I feel that that is a safety issue. And so that's really why, Barry, I was really trying to confine this to where we had thought that we had some agreements, because you and I had several conversations about this.
I felt that bringing that little nook under consideration wasn't to contradict your suggestion. I just saw that as a spot where there was a no parking line, it's painted on there, and I just, in casting about...
There's no parking line because there are trucks that will park back there from time to time.
I'm now illuminated.
David?
But nonetheless, I am looking to the town for support, and if anybody has ideas of places, I'm most open to hearing about that.
David?
Seems to me that when we're asked to consider an application like this, we need to look as a board to the department heads to make recommendations to us. And what I've heard so far tonight, unless I'm mistaken, is that of all the different possibilities where these structures could be set up, right now the only thing that the department heads have said is that the structures could be set up in a way that wouldn't interfere with town business, 2 days on the basketball courts near the pool, and then 2 weeks at the parking lot up by the skating rink in August. And as to the 2 weeks up at the skating rink, I thought I heard Barry say that the surface of the parking lot up near the skating rink is not ideal for skating on these structures. So what I've heard really is that 2 days on the basketball court might make for good skating. 2 weeks up near the a skating rink wouldn't really make for particularly good skating. And that's all that I've heard that we're really being asked to endorse by the department heads. We then come to the separate question about protection for the town. And my experience on the town school board and the high school board was that routinely when outside activities were being endorsed, we were seeking to make sure that there was coverage, either through our own policy or through an outside policy. So I guess I have an inquiry of the town manager whether our policy would be covering this.
Yes.
At this point, and if it's going to cost us extra for our policy to cover this.
No. No. When we talked with the insurance, what they were trying to do was to mitigate the risk, and that's what their suggestion was to mitigate.
But my concern at this point is whether there's coverage for.
And there is coverage.
For the activities that would be going on. So.
Yes.
If that's the case, I guess the question is, for these limited time periods, maybe we make a motion to.
That's right. That's what we're going to do.
And then we vote on that motion.
Could I make maybe a recommendation to authorize the town manager to enter into a hold harmless agreement with Berry Lane for the installation of the portable skate sites at locations to be agreed upon?
That date specific.
I would like to know what that means in terms of my involvement. Being named, what is the ramifications of that?
You're going to be the one that enters into the agreement with Barb for the dates that we are going to vote on, like the 2 days at the basketball court and the 2 days up in the upper parking lot. So the agreement will be with you.
Yeah.
But what does that make me exposed as a
No.
source? I mean,
That's a good question, but you won't be exposed.
That's funny.
You won't be exposed.
The issue, well, I don't know, because the issue is, what we're saying is that we didn't have anything to do with the town we didn't hire anyone to create for us skating structures, okay? And we don't know, you did that, and you entered into an agreement with somebody to create those skating structures. So what we're doing is we're saying to you, we're saying to Berry Lane, Barry, you can put your skating structures on our property, but you're going to say that you're going to hold us harmless if anything happens, either to anybody on the structures or to the structures themselves.
okay, thank you.
All right, that horse is dead. Are we ready for that vote?
Who made that motion?
What is the motion?
To authorize the town manager to enter into a hold harmless agreement with Berry Lane for the installation of portable skate structures at locations and times to be determined.
I have a friendly amendment.
Well, you have to make a
I'm
motion.
making a motion. So to add to that motion, I would just like to add that Barry work with the Town Arts Committee to make sure that the project fits the criteria for public art.
I do apologize for that, because I thought they had already. I apologize.
I move that the board authorize portable skate structures to be put on town property at times and locations as determined by the town manager, subject to a hold harmless agreement that's acceptable to the town manager, and further subject to coordination with the Town Arts Committee.
That's good.
That's better than your motion.
That's better.
Yes, it is.
That's why he's a board member.
Ken?
Well, I don't understand why we're saying that they have to go through the Town Arts Committee, that we're saying that this has to be declared public art. I mean, I guess I just don't understand why we're attaching that as a piece of this. If he wants to go forward with that process is open and he can go forward to this process, but I don't think the select board should be saying, and we want this to be declared public art, and thus you must go through the Town Arts Committee.
I'm happy to strike that last clause, I think that's
Wasn't
fine.
part of those, they were built with grant money from?
Well, the grant money is a private foundation, and through my hope to navigate the byways of the town, I found myself at some point in front of TAC, and we began a discussion, and the recommendation was to continue the process here. So I believe they're art, and they have their own process of what includes the utilization or recognition of art. I am
Kate?
learning.
Thank you. No, it's not the utilization or the assessment of it being art. The process was started. We have a public arts policy that is approved by you all. And Barry came to us and the process was begun. So as I was reading the summary of the agenda and see that it's labeled function as portable skate parks, but also be public art, and as this process had been begun, it seemed only logical that it would be completed. It was initiated, it should be completed, and if it is to be called public art, then it's logical that it would go through the public arts policy, which is a municipal policy approved by the select board. It just is a procedural question, and it's not in any way making a claim to assess anything as art or not as art. It's just finishing a process that was begun.
Ken?
And I would absolutely agree, and we should funnel it through there if the motion was that the select board is also declaring this to be public art.
That's
Which,
the question.
right, which was not part of the motion. And so I highly encourage that, and I think this should go through that policy, but I don't think that the select board should be mandating that the skatable art structures are both, the skatable structures are both skatable and art, and thus they must go through TAC. I think we can encourage that, but I don't think that this should be binding. That doesn't
I agree with
make
Ken.
sense to me.
That's fine.
That's fine. Dora?
Well, I'm trying to support the arts committee, and I think the issue is that it's being called public art, and it's on town property, and if we're passing the motion, and that it's being called, the whole project is being called public art, I think we're sort of quibbling over little language issues, and I'm again trying to support.
Well, we'll
a town
encourage
committee.
Barry to work with the Arts Committee to finish up that portion of it. So
As long as the
we're going to get you
progress
what you
is
want.
not contingent.
That's right. We're going to get you what you want. We have a motion on the floor.
And just to clarify, the
You-
motion does
not
not
include
include
the-
the second subject to
Right.
requirement.
That's right. Okay?
Try to restate it verbatim, but it'll come out different.
That's right.
Which I
Jan's got it.
I
It's
would
fine.
like to make one more comment. I think that actually does support, I don't think you're going to find someone who supports the Arts Committee as much as I do. But I think this actually does support the Arts Committee, because the last thing that I remember we wanted are people being forced to go through the Arts Committee if that wasn't their intention. I think that we would encourage you to stop calling it public art in connection in this way, just because we do have the town arts policy, but we can't control how this is being phrased.
Can I add just one comment here? It feels like it needs to be either or. If you're going to call it public art, then it should go through the public art
Absolutely.
policy.
Right.
If you want to strike that from I realize it's not in the motion, but it's in the
Right.
summary. That's why I'm here. Sat here for a long time this evening for this. It just needs clarity.
Point taken.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor, and
Is there a name that would be an acceptable name to be attached to the motion if there's an
Brad
objection
Skate.
to call?
The motion is about
the
skatable
motion is
arts-
about
skatable structures.
skatable structures.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor, and all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have representatives from Building the
Thank you.
Better Brattleboro here. Wake up! Ready to talk about grant application to the Downtown Transportation Fund, the amount of $31,150 for art signs. No, I'm just teasing.
Thank you for being so patient. You got here early to get good seats. And so I'm going to have you introduce yourselves.
Andrea Livermore, I'm the Director of Building and Better Brattleboro.
And Adam Hubbard with Stevens and Associates, Assistant.
Very good. And you're up.
Okay. So Building Better Brattleboro is bringing a proposal to the Select Board for approval so that we can apply to the Vermont Downtown Transportation Fund for this wayfinding signage project. We did bring this project to the board last fall, and I never had any sense that there was any disagreement about the project. It was more about the match money. As people know, this funding source requires it's a 50-50 deal. So basically, we have to come up with 50% match for the total project funding. Since last fall, a number of things have happened, but they resulted in we've been able to find the match money other ways. So we're no longer asking the municipality to come up with any of the match money. Actually, Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce has pitched in some money, and BAB through, which is $5,000, BAB through, actually through a grant application that we have out that we've yet to receive, but we're hearing very encouraging things about that we will be receiving that, has a modest $2,000 in there to go towards the match as well. Also, since our original proposal, we've done a couple of things, and one is we have talked with members of the Town Arts Committee about the issue. In our last presentation, there was some discussion about should the arts community in general be more involved in the design of these signs. We've had some discussions with the Town Arts Committee about that. In addition, we've worked with Public Works some, and actually invited Dick DeGray to come with us on a walk around, knowing Dick is pretty interested in parking signs and whatever, and he joined us. We were appreciative of that. Actually walking around and amending the original plan that we had proposed last fall. I'm going to start losing words now, it's past my bedtime. So we actually have added some signs, a lot of focus on parking and getting to parking and actually where parking is located. One of the things in our walk around that I kept sort of chanting was that a lot of our existing parking signs are really small, and trying to think from the perspective of a driver negotiating downtown and making a left or making a right to go down a side street to one of the lots. And though there are signs there, they're really small, so the idea of enlarging some of those signs. Part of the proposal is also to remove signs. We'll be replacing some of our older, nastier or too small signs with new, consistent, attractive signs. Not that we have nasty signs, but you know what I mean. Some of them are in need of some work. I'm not sure, given the, I guess that's the proposal, and does anybody have any questions?
Is nasty sign a term of art?
That's not the art part.
Dora?
I'll make the motion. I'll move to approve the Vermont Downtown Transportation Fund grant in the amount of $31,150 for the purpose of designing, building, and installing wayfinding signage to be done through an request for proposal process through the Arts Committee, working in concert with Building a Better Brattleboro and the town staff.
Very good.
She's going rogue, I don't know.
I'm going rogue.
Got a question?
Yes.
I was just looking at the budget, and it looks like the downtown transportation grant isn't for $31,150, but for $15,600.
The total grant.
The project, the whole project is $31,150.
Okay.
Right, so we have to split that.
Okay. So you're really asking who for $15,600?
The downtown transportation fund.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So is that what we're being asked to?
No, that you're asked, it's the grant amount is
$31,000.
$31,150. That's the application.
Oh, okay.
Of that, the budget is made of different sources.
Got it.
Although we're not putting any hard cash in, our in-kind services are worth $4,800.
Got it. Okay. Great. Thank you.
And one of the things that after we went through our walkthrough, and I go by this area every day, there is a sign actually at the bottom of Elm and Flat Street, that when you get down there, it says parking, and there is an arrow, so.
And there's also a parking sign at the corner of High and Green as well. There are two parking signs there as well.
So, good.
Byway sign.
The other area that you heard us actually talking about briefly at the beginning of the meeting was what's the lot behind the rec department?
The Harris lot?
The Harris lot. And I couldn't remember how we left that in terms of signage.
I think we have a parking sign in front of the stone church.
Yeah,
And I think
Yes.
that was our intention, was to try to get people to go in that way, you know, sort of coming from that direction. And it may have been a two-sided sign, we talked about that.
I think that we talked about that sign pointing up to the High Grove lot as well. So maybe there's an opportunity to have a sign on the east side of Main Street pointing to the Harris lot.
Good luck.
For northbound.
yeah, for northbound traffic, because as I was looking here, the last actually parking sign that we have is up by your building, BABB's building. And if you miss, and that sign is to get you up into the High Grove lot.
Right, right.
And so if you miss that sign, if we had another sign down in front of the, by the telephone
Right, by Fair Point.
building, to get us into probably the most underutilized parking space in the weekend. There just isn't, we really need to try to funnel people, and it's actually easy access downtown.
The other, can I ask a question
Sure.
about the friendly amendment, or the, so, and when you're talking about taking the signs, are you talking about the entire, so what we would take is the whole project and the design of what the signs look like, not just a logo that says that we're an arts town? I just want clarification so I understand what you're talking about.
I mean, I think basically I was leaving it open-ended for you guys to work with the Arts Committee on that. I mean, whether it's a
we're fine
logo
with
or,
doing that.
you know, it's, and with Public Works as far as what, you know, makes sense though. Unless you want something more specific, I mean, Kate would, you know.
Well, I think from our point of view, it would be Kate Anderson, Brattleboro. From our point of view, we would drop an RFP that would specify requirements from the state and the municipality to these signs. The sign itself, if it meets those requirements, isn't going to have a lot of latitude, I wouldn't think, in terms of design, so it would have to probably be something on it, I'm thinking. But until the RFP is drawn up and until we have criteria, it is open-ended. I think the point is simply to provide the community with a process by which different members of the community with design skills could potentially enter a sort of quasi-competition, and then these signs could be chosen, the design for the signs could be chosen from that. Much the same as we did with the bus shelter. That is a provision for the town, for the community that meets specific requirements, and it just happens to also be, a word that was used was attractive, I guess.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is we should work with the town arts committee.
Well, and that's what the motion says,
Okay.
through the town arts committee, with working with you in concert with Building Better Brattleboro and town staff. So
That's fine, I just wanted to make sure I understood
Yeah.
your intent, if there wasn't anything that
It's,
I didn't get.
I mean, you know, part of it is also to sort of have a public process for that as well, which I think.
Well, when I'm looking at the sign package that was in our packet, we're pretty much, there's not a whole lot of artistic value into a P on
Oh, come on.
on a sign.
You'll see.
You'll see, yes, you'll see.
Yeah, typefaces,
Lots
Dick.
of-
Yeah, that's right.
Front page cover
Lots
story in
of,
the New York Times Magazine about highway
Lots of
sign
cool stuff.
thefts.
Well, I think part of the challenge of this, and part of is the, what is the book called, Matt, or the requirements of, I'm sorry?
The manual, uniform traffic control device.
Yeah, there's just, there's not a lot of latitude, so
Right.
this is the criteria, and this is what you do, so. But that's fine.
Sans serif type is very 20th century. Not 21st century, though.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 5-0. Thank you, and thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing it back.
The sheet that they sign off on, that I gave it to Jan. If not,
do.
we'll
Yeah, we
do
do.
it.
I don't know what Jan does with stuff.
I don't need it tonight, but as long as I can get signatures by 2 weeks. Okay, thank you.
Next up, Steve Barrett's here with the town road and bridge standards. Nothing artful about this, it's just regular old standards. Kate's leaving.
Good evening.
You're back.
What I have here, what the board has in front of them is it's updated town and road bridge standards. It's provided by the Vermont Agency of Transportation. And what this document says is that it gives us guidelines on how we standards basically on our roadways, on how we construct roadways and bridge and culverts. And so as we go for a bridge and culvert grants, it reduces the percentage when we do get grants. So I'm recommending that we accept these standards. We're following these standards right now. Every so many years they update them. And our policy mirrors this standard. So I'm just asking that you approve these standards.
Okay, and I'll accept the motion.
I move that we adopt the town road and bridge standards as presented.
Questions? Dora?
Just what's been changed?
Well, the percentage, actually, they're lowering the percentage of, that they'll give the town.
As far as grants are concerned.
So for class 2 roadways, the percentage the town has to commit goes from 20 to 10%, which is huge. The grants are a maximum up to $175,000. These are for class 2 roadways and also smaller bridge structures. In fact, this year we will be applying for a grant for Ames Hill and also for South Main Street, which is considered a class 2 roadway. That's a big factor. Another part of this is when you look at it, and it talks about ditches and slopes. The seeding and mulching has become more important in today's standards. And also it talks about the parabolic or the U-shaped ditches versus V-shaped ditches. Those are some of the more minor changes. The gravel that you apply to a road, our previous base gravel was 12 inches, this is 15 inches. Okay, so they've increased the amount of sub-base, and that's because we have larger trucks and vehicles, so you need a bigger base. Those are some of the, and the culverts are, and we've been doing this for quite a few years, when you have to size a culvert properly for the drainage that it's going to receive. So you have a watershed area, and you just don't put a culvert in and say it's 15, that's close enough. What we do is we actually have a study done to determine the amount of water at a peak flow. They figured out a 25-year storm that would go through that culvert, so they don't wash out. So instead of a 15-inch, you may need an 18-inch. And those are kind of pretty much the big changes.
David?
I remember the fourth item I wanted to report about is
The
what
road.
roads are going to be worked on this construction season. Would this be an appropriate time to inquire, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That's in the monthly report, correct?
Right, but if we,
Oh, okay,
if we could
put it
just, I
in the
just want to
public.
make sure
Okay,
that
sure.
Yeah, I did update the board in the monthly, and this is kind of a moving target depending on what we receive for grants. For instance, if we receive this class 2 money for Ames Hill, then we would move forward with that project, which is actually a gravel road. But we'd use some of the road improvement money for that road because we actually put a lot of money into that during mud season every year. if we didn't get the grant money, we would probably slide that project off, and then we would go more into a paving situation. So it would change the number of roads that we would do. The roads that have been discussed are, let's see, Washington Street Hill, which is pretty much done. We also talked about Cedar Street. We've talked about Bird Street. And what's the other one? Union Hill I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So those are some of the basic roads that we're talking about. But it's kind of a moving target. And the other thing that's going to have a big factor this year is the oil prices. And that increases the amount of tonnage that you can actually put down. So we may be in a position where if the cost per ton of hot mix is so high, we may be in a position where we don't do a lot of paving this summer and defer it to next spring because we'll get a lot more paving for our money.
I would just agree that those 4 roads are in really bad shape.
Yes. And Prospect
Really
Street,
bad
Prospect Street, a lot of people don't go on that particular street, but that's also on this list of roads that need it, but it doesn't get, it's not heavily traveled, so it's not one of those ones you see all the time.
Christopher?
Yeah, can you grind up the old road and melt it and put it in the new road?
There's a process. Last year on Bonneville Road, we ground the road surface up and it went through what they call a pug mill, and it reapplies asphalt, and we reapplied that material down, and then they applied a petroleum product with a small peach stone. It's called like a chip seal. And that was, our engineering tech, Gary King, did a lot of research on that particular project, and we tried, it's kind of an experiment because you get more road done for less money, but then with that comes, do you get as much of a durable surface? The answer is no, but in some cases you're forced to go that route because we only have so much money to maintain the roads we have. So that's being done. Another example is on Guilford Street Extension, and Guilford Street is another road that's in really bad shape. It's right on the top of the list. But that's also one that is eligible for some other funding possibly, so we're waiting that out. But on the further end of Guilford Street, that was actually a dirt road, and the millings that came off Weston Avenue were applied out there on Guilford Street Extension, better known as Creamery Road now, and because we had a lot of problems with mud and such. That held up for several years, and then what we needed to do is actually put a hot mix overlay over that whole roadway. And it's held up pretty well, so we're trying all these different types of applications. And certainly the best is when you can keep a road to a point where you're only doing overlays or crack sealing and maintaining it. When you have to do a rebuild, it's much more expensive.
Dora?
As long as we're talking about roads, Cedar Street,
Yeah.
the erosion on Cedar Street in the section that hasn't had the gully put in is getting really bad to the point where it is really wearing underneath the road. Definitely look into checking into it, because it really, the section that was done, that had like the gutter put in there, that's really worked. But what happened was it moved the erosion down to the lower portion, and now it's undermining the road on the down below.
Ken?
I'm sorry. If we could set aside time to talk about these things, but there is a motion on the table, and these questions are not adopting the town roads and bridge standards. I think that these are good topics that we should set aside time to talk about, but I made a motion, and
Your point is taken, but since we have him here, and Dave had asked a question 2 weeks ago about the paving of the roads, it is germane to what we're doing. So, and I don't think that there's any more questions, and my next question is, are we ready for this vote?
Yes.
There you go. And so all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Next up.
Next up, Union Hill bids.
So Union Hill, we talked a little bit earlier about the paving funds when the question was asked about the balance and capital. That was actually, I believe, what, two years ago, Barb? 3 years
Yes.
ago at town meeting?
2.
An $800,000 appropriation by town meeting was approved, and that was spread out over 2 years. This is the last project out of that $800,000 that we're proposing to do, and the street is Union Hill. So we put this out to bid, and the bids are higher than what we expected, and we had a balance of $19,168 in the budget out of this 800. The low bid was from FW Whitcomb for $24,150, and that's $4,983 over our budget. The reason that the bids were high, it's only one project. It's a very difficult project. Anytime that we have done Union Hill, I've seen it done 3 times. It's very difficult, and it's a very big challenge. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is actually the oil prices. We're looking, when I talked about tonnage is what you pay when you purchase hot mix. It was like in the $70 range last year. The state project, for instance, is in the $60 range, $68 range. This came in at the $90 range. So it just gives you an example of how the petroleum prices affect asphalt. That because they have to truck it there, and then there's also petroleum products used for the process. So with that, you got a copy, I think, of the memo I did. You have a copy of that? Or Barb, I gave Barb a memo anyways. And so I'm asking if we should attempt to try to work this into our budget with this $4,983 amount that we need to make up.
I'm going to recommend that the board enter into a contract with FW Whitcomb for $24,150 to pave Union Hill Road, because I do believe that we will have this in our current operating. We'll be able to cover the $4,983 through our operating expenses.
Dora?
The only question I would have is there any potential to have savings to sort of to take this and roll it into, like, mixing it with the other projects? You were mentioning the fact that because this is a smaller project, an individual project, or does that just seem like it wouldn't?
Possibly, but I was a little discouraged. We were discouraged because one of the contractors is currently mobilized in town, and that's one of the biggest costs to do the state project, and they were actually the high bidder. So that kind of discourages that theory a little. If they, in other words, a lot of their costs, even this other company is going to have to just mobilize. I think it comes back to the difficulty of of this particular hill. And in fact, it may raise the prices on the other roads that are easier. So this is kind of a standalone. I think the prices, our estimate was very close to this, our engineering estimate. So, in fact, I think his was 22.
Now, we're able to piggyback on state bids when we're purchasing vehicles. Why are we not allowed to piggyback with purchases
Because
of
every
like that?
particular job is different, has a different application. You're asking for different things. When we pave roads, some we're going to grind down and do a complete rebuild. Other roads are going to do an 1.5 inch overlay. Some roads are going to put a 1 inch just overlay and shim it first and then overlay it. So every application is a little bit different. And it all comes down to this mobilization and how much work and how much tonnage and how that meets their schedule. Do you have a half a day's work? Do you have a full day's work? It all plays in. Okay. We are able to jump onto certain contracts. Many times, that's really why we're aggressive to get this out, hoping that the company that was in town may offer us a good pricing, but that didn't happen this time. Next time, it may happen.
All right.
I move that the town.
No.
No, we're not in contract. I move that the town enter into a contract with FW Whitcomb in the amount of $24,150 to repave Union Hill.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you, Steve.
Next up.
Sorry for keeping you here so late.
Next up is the annual Myrtle Street Block Party. They've done this for many years, June 11th from 3 p.m. till 10 p.m. Never had any issues, and all the department heads have signed off on it.
I'll accept the motion.
I move to approve a street blocking permit for a block party on Myrtle Street between Cedar and Spruce on June 11th from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Circus Smirkus is again in town, July 19th and 20th.
I'll accept the motion.
Move to approve the circus permit for Circus Smirkus on July 18th, 19th, and 20th at the Vermont Agricultural Business Education Center for 2 shows each day at 2 and 7 p.m.
And I see a fire watch is required here, and that they're all set with that?
Yep.
Okay. All those in further discussion? All those in favor of this motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Next is the annual dog warrant. This really enables us to send both our town clerk letters will go out, as well as our animal control officer will go out and start notifying people. And what we'll find is many of the dogs on this list are not in residence anymore, and others will, with a friendly reminder, will register their beasts.
Accept the motion.
I move to approve the annual dog warrant as presented.
Further discussion?
My least favorite part of the job.
I know, this is a bummer.
It always.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
The board is asked to accept and appropriate a grant for the printer that goes with the MorphoTrack fingerprinting system.
I'll accept the motion.
Move to accept and appropriate a grant from the Vermont Department of Public Safety in the amount of $835.26 for a printer for the MorphoTrack fingerprint system.
There you go. Tongue twister. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Next, a private citizen, Jonathan Toby, has given a $50 donation to the police department. The police would like you to accept and appropriate that, and they would use it probably in their clothing budget line item.
I'll accept the motion.
Move to accept and appropriate. Move to accept and appropriate a $50 donation from Jonathan Toby to the Brattleboro Police Department to be used as most needed.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Charter Commission has finished their work. They are respectfully requesting that the board disband them.
What happens if we don't?
Then we'll double their pay.
Okay.
I'll accept the motion.
I move to decommission the Charter Review Commission and thank the members profusely for their service.
And I second that, and Spoonagavi, Larry Block, Richard Dudman, Tom Fennell, Ronnie Johnson, Jane Southworth, and Corky Elwell. There are 2 others that are slipping the top of my head. Hugh.
Not Hugh.
Harold.
Harold Dampierre, that's one, and the other one is Orion Barber.
Orion Barber.
There you go, and it's right there in front of me.
Yeah.
I just want to thank them for their service. They worked for 3 years on this, and it was much appreciated. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0? 5-0.
Under your correspondence, there are the warrants, there are the monthly department reports, there's the quarterly update from Vermont Yankee, minutes from the Housing Authority, a letter from Vermont Fiber Connect, and the monthly Board of Trustees, Library Board of Trustees report.
Meetings.
We have May 18th, tomorrow, a special board meeting, 5 p.m. here, talk about utilities. If people wouldn't mind bringing their calendars so we could schedule another couple work sessions that would work, not necessarily for utilities, but for transportation, et cetera. May 19th, CPCC, 5 p.m. in the Hannah Cosman. May 19th, Skateboard Committee in the Hannah Cosman at 6 p.m. May 23rd, Planning Commission, 6 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room. May 24th, Traffic Safety, 8:30 a.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room. May 24th, Conservation Commission, 5:15 p.m. in the Hannah Cosman. May 26th, the Finance Committee is meeting for the second time at 4:30 in the Hannah Cosman. June 2nd, the the Skateboard Park Committee is meeting at 6 p.m. in the Hannah Cosman. June 6th, the West River Park Committee is meeting at 6:30 at Gibson Akins. June 7th, the Solid Waste Committee meets at 1:30 in the Hannah Cosman. June 7th, the Town Arts Committee meets at 4 p.m. in the Hannah Cosman. And June 7th is the next regularly scheduled Select Board meeting at 6:15 in the Select Board Meeting Room.
There you go, and I'll accept the motion.
I just have a request related to the meetings, and that is that the way that they're put into the packet now, they're using about 4 or 5 pieces of paper, and if we could go back to doing them as a list or something like that, so that we wouldn't be using as much paper to...
Does the board want those on their agenda?
It's good to have them.
I mean, I like having them there. I think I just you know it's.
It takes a lot of time.
It uses more paper and less paper, but uses much more time to put all of those, to gather all the information and put it in one spot.
So
This
we'll
way
try to
it's
look
just
for a way,
printing off a
but we'll
calendar.
compromise and try to look for a way to.
Yeah, I mean, if we could, I don't.
To
I mean,
try
I don't
to,
want it to take a huge amount of money, but.
It's good
I'll accept the
exercise in
motion.
recycling.
I move to adjourn.
Jan's
There
expensive.
you go. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 5-0. Thank you, board, good meeting, and thank you, BCTV.
Is there any more of those? Or the rest are all good?
I think we have a few things to sign.
The sun is going to wait for a year.
Lots of things to sign.
So it goes off to now.
Yep.
Lots of things to sign.
Yep. Okay.